Everybody, welcome to the WBC Council meeting for Thursday, 18th of February 2021. Before we start, I have some standard admin to do. Can you please ensure that any mobile devices, phones, pads or anything like that are switched off? And if you are not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. Also, leave the video off. It's better if we don't have too many connected at the same time. We get better reception without that. Obviously, if you are speaking, you need to put the video and the sound back on and then take them off again at the end. To assist people viewing the meeting, could everybody speak only when invited to speak? And basically, use the hands up facility on Teams whenever you want to draw attention or want to speak. I have that on the side of the screen. And also note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. Right. In addition to the standard introductions I've just done, I want to bring a few extra points to your attention, please. The meetings generally go fairly well when we follow the procedures as they're meant to be, but that doesn't always happen, and sometimes people speak too long. Instead of asking a question, they do a long introduction, which all takes valuable time at the available meeting time. Some of the answers likewise. So if you're asking a question, can you please come to the question quickly? And if you are offered a supplementary, do the same thing. If the executives can answer equally quickly. Any speeches you make or comments you make should be directed to the question under discussion and or a personal explanation of a point of order. There is not much point just standing up and shouting points of order, causing disruption, unless it's done in the correct way. And according to the Constitution, I just wanted to draw your attention to those points. If you are going to stand up and say something like that, you need to identify by quoting the reference number for the point of order. Point of order should relate to an alleged breach of council rules or procedures or the law. And if you're doing that, the member must indicate the rule or the law that you are challenging and how they consider it has been broken. The ruling of the mayor also is final in this matter. Personal explanations, some people say just clarity and so on, they must relate to an earlier speech by the member, him or herself, which they think may have been misunderstood. You know, debate that's now taking place. Again, you need to identify that. During a recorded vote, when everybody indicating individually by voice, please limit your responses to either for, against or abstain. You must not make any other comments or asides during that process. That's a whole set of rules there, but they're not new. They've been there for some time. I just want to draw your attention to them because we have quite a decent agenda to get through tonight. And when people speak for too long or they challenge each other and say points of order unnecessarily, it takes a lot of time. And I have to try and get through this. So if anybody speaks too long or causes a problem, I will mute them. Right, at that point, we now move on to the main meeting itself. So we move to agenda item 88, which is apologies. Does anyone have any apologies for absence? If you do, please get someone or whatever has happened if you've advised someone you won't be here.
Mr. Mayor, we have one apology. That's Oliver Whittle.
Okay, thank you. That will be duly noted. Thank you very much. No one else then? We move now on to agenda item 89, which is the minutes to the meeting, to the last meeting. Before anyone else tells me any, I have an amendment I have to draw your attention to. I wish to propose it relates to a missing section from a recorded vote table and a resolution in minute number 97.1 from the previous meeting. This amendment has been previously circulated to members and it will be shown on the screen now. You should see a white screen with some yellowed names. Those names were meant to be on the thing which was approved, and for some reason they weren't, so we are now drawing your attention to that, and it will be duly amended to do that. So now, of course, we've added that extra bit, can I therefore have members' agreements to the minutes, including the amendments which you've just seen? I will assume you are in agreement unless someone advises me that they disagree.
I would like to make a comment, Malcolm, if I may.
Certainly.
I recognise the difficulty democratic services have in the translation of these online meetings, and I must add that to date, as far as I can see, they're absolutely brilliant at the work they do. But listening to the video transcript of the last meeting, Councillor John Kaiser's seconding of the timetable for 2020 for the 2021 agenda item, the wording that were recorded are very different to the wording that are in the minutes, to the point that they're misleading. I won't read them out because it would take a long time, but what was said, what is recorded, in no way reflects what was actually said on the night. So can the minutes be corrected to reflect what Councillor Kaiser actually said? And or as an alternative, could a health warning be put on all council-run meetings to say that they are, although they are conducted remotely and then signed, the meetings may contain errors, and that would be a compromise.
Could you bear with me for a moment, please? I need to seek some advice on that. Yes, just as the advice is that the minutes are not actually verbatim minutes. If they're verbatim minutes, it would be absolutely word for word, of course. They're not. They are a correct representation of the sentiment of the comment, if you wish. Normally, if there is a change, as there was in that previous amendment we just voted on, where we added additional names, those additional names were provided and shown to you. The minutes are simply a sort of a representation of what was said and not verbatim. So there doesn't appear to be any need to change anything on that at the moment, I don't think. Okay, but your comment is duly noted, of course.
Yeah, thank you for that, Malcolm. My comment is that what was actually said or is recorded no way reflects what was actually said. So they're very clearly different, and the historians in time will look at it, and you will have signed a record that was inaccurate. I mean, if the point is taken that the comment is made that all council-run meetings are conducted remotely, then signed copies may contain errors, that at least solves.
We're not going to do that, no, because we have said they're not verbatim notes. They're just a representation of the subject matter and the sort of general content. They're not actually word for word.
No, that's correct, but they must reflect the content of what was said, and this clearly does not. Now, I could read them both out to you, but that would drag the meeting on, and I'm trying not to do that. But they don't have to be verbatim, but they must clearly represent the intent of what was actually said, and these two do not.
Okay, well, I think you've made the point and I've responded. I'd like to actually go back to approving the minutes, if I may, please, to take a vote on the minutes as they were, and your comment obviously is verbally made. Can I ask for your approval? And if no one disagrees, they will be, whatever. I'll give you several seconds to stick your hand up or whatever. So are these hands people who are in approval or non-approval? Because I've got half and half here.
I think we're confused, Malcolm.
So what I said was, if someone has any disagreements, to contact us. Otherwise, if no one comes in, then we're approved. So that's the way we normally do it.
Mr. Mayor, I'm really sorry. It's Emma Hobbs here. I don't have a hand to stick up,
Okay.
so I approve.
But you approve of them. Okay, thank you. So,
Mr. Mayor, it's Pauline here.
Yes.
Pauline Jorgensen. I wasn't at the meeting, so I would like to abstain.
Okay.
And I will vote against.
Okay.
Alan.
I will vote against as well.
And who's that one voting against?
Councillor Frewen.
Okay, Councillor Frewen.
Malcolm, I'm sorry, it's Councillor G. Are we sticking up our hands if we approve the minutes now?
No. What I said at the beginning was, if no one disagrees, we'll approve them. But let us know only if you disagree.
Right, so we stick our hands up if we disagree.
Yes, and so normally there are no hands going up because everybody tends to agree them. So if you've got your hands up and you actually agree with it, please take your hands down, and I'm looking for a gap. I've still got 2 or 3 hands. Okay, the majority is carried anyway, so they are approved. Okay. I hope you don't mind me not going down too much time on discussing those minutes. The majority are in approval. Thank you. I will now move on to the next item, agenda item 90, declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare an interest?
Yes, Malcolm, Lindsay here.
Yes.
I am a non-executive director of Loddon Homes Limited, so therefore I declare a non-pecuniary interest.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to declare an interest as well. I am an unpaid director of Loddon, and I declare a personal interest in the Mtfp.
Okay.
Can I also say, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Kaiser here, I am director of both Optilis and the housing company.
Okay.
Malcolm.
Yes.
Malcolm, it's Wayne here. Non-exec director for WBC Holdings. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
And the same for me, please, Malcolm. Stuart Munro here.
Stuart Munro, sharing an interest.
John
Okay.
Hawthorne.
Of what?
Director of Optilis.
Okay. Any more?
Yes, Daniel Sargent, Director of Woking Housing Limited and Bayebrook Homes Limited. Thank you, Malcolm.
Right. Thank you. So if you can take your hands down, I'll have a look if there's any others. No. I think they're all duly noted. Thank you. So we move from declarations of interest now on to the Mayor's announcements. As usual, of course, during the COVID restrictions, there are not many events, if any, that we can do. I've done a few virtual ones, and I have done a few official ones during the lifting, the various lifted sessions, but nothing to report in terms of going out doing mayoral activities. However, you may recall that I have approved charity at the beginning of the year, and one of the charities that we're working with at the moment is the Home Start Wokingham charity. Our aim when we choose a charity is that we will help them as best we can to raise their profile and therefore perhaps activity levels and improve their income. And Home Start Wokingham and ourselves, we've come up with the idea of an art and photographic competitions. The art competition is the one I'm announcing tonight. The idea is it will be for children from about 4 to 11, and they can submit art in drawings, paintings, whatever they want to do. And there will be 2 prizes, one for the infant ones from 4 to 7, and then the 7 to 11 will be a separate age group. The details of this are actually on the website. Home Start themselves have it, of course, and we've got it on our website as well. I had the actual address here to quote to you, but it's underneath my papers at the moment, so forgive me if I haven't got it. But you can look at the WBC website, find the details of the Home Start Wokingham Art Competition 2021. It started several days ago and it runs till the end of February, February the 28th. So please, if you are going to get involved in it, please do so with some haste. Thank you. Now move on to item 92, public question time. We have 30 minutes for this. We will get as many questions as we are able to do within that time. And supplementary questions are allowed here. With the reminder, of course, that you need to get to the question as quickly as possible and answer as quickly as possible. If you overrun, we will ask you to stop, and if you don't, then I'm afraid we will have to mute you. So can I invite Alistair Neal to ask his question of Councillor John Halsall, please?
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is a question about settled status for EU citizens. The deadline for EU citizens to register for settled status is the 30th of June 2021. The September Council meeting passed a motion that called on officers to review the Council's plans with respect to EU settled status. I'll give an example of Brighton of active steps that have been taken by other councils. Just that, I mean, there's 4,097 EU citizens registered on the electoral register in 2018 in Wokingham, but I mean that doesn't cover people who haven't registered, people who live in sublets, HMOs, agricultural accommodation, and also EU citizens who are working where there's no sort of formal contact with employers and HR resources to tell them about the new rules, such as self-employed tradesmen and workers in the app-based gig economy. So I'm sure that the Council would like all EU citizens to continue their lives in the borough. And with these points in mind, could the Council leader give me an update on the review called for in the Council's September motion and on its plan of action going forward, contacting Wokingham's EU citizens before July?
Thank you. Councillor Halsall, would you like to answer that question, please?
Thank you very much for your question, Alistair. Following the motion last September, the Council has taken the following action to mitigate the impact of Brexit for EU nationals living in the borough. WBC is actively promoting information and advice targeted at EU citizens, particularly the need to register through EU settlement programme if they wish to remain in the UK and have access to services they are entitled to under the scheme. Under the current regulations, EU citizens that have registered for settled status will be able to access public services such as the NHS, adult social care, benefits, housing, homelessness, housing services, primary and secondary schooling, and professional qualifications in EU countries will be continued to be recognised. Advice and information was distributed through a new letter to 5,000 residents in early February 2021. Information, if further disseminated through regular social media messaging, reaching 13.5 thousand followers, as well as the Council's website. The Council additionally plans to send information to community groups, third-party charities and organisations that are likely to be in contact with EU residents. Advice on how businesses can support EU nations will be distributed through the Business Matters newsletter. The Council's public health partner, PPP, issues licences to HMOs and plan to ensure that information around the settlement documentation for EU citizens will encourage landlords to share information with their tenants. The Council is also working in partnership with local housing providers to ensure that they share relevant information with their tenants. The Council has offered to assist residents with a settled status app. The Registry Office and One Front Door are providing direct information to EU citizens, as well as offering the document scanning and one-to-one support services.
Could we be as prompt as possible, please? Councillor Halsall, just finish promptly.
The registry officers will become designated under government plans to support EU nationals seeking settled status. And I've got several of other things that we're doing, but I need to leave it there. Ms. Neal.
Okay. Do you have a supplementary at all, Mr. Neal?
Yes,
brief, hopefully.
yes,
Yep.
please. Yeah. Well, thank you, Councillor Halsall, for that reply. Yes, and if I could just I mean, quote you from last month's exec meeting when you said that the golden thread that runs through the borough is the council, and also that the council holds a unique position when it comes to contacting residents. And so with that in mind, I mean, could you tell me whether you set any sort of target for the number of citizens you expect to take up the settled status in the borough?
I don't think really it's for us to do that. It's a decision for them, and the obligation on us is to make sure that they're aware of what they need to do that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Next question is, could Philip Cunnington ask his question of Councillor Ullacrin Clark, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to ask the question of the Executive Member for Children's Services. What additional provision has been put in place to support the mental health and well-being of 15 to 18-year-olds in the borough whose education and exams have been particularly badly disrupted during the COVID lockdowns?
Thank you for your question. The COVID pandemic has affected the lives and education of children and young people across the borough. And we have been working, and we are working with schools and settings on providing the right resources and information via the school's hub to support staff and students' emotional health and well-being. Whilst all secondary schools will have different arrangements to support the well-being of the students as part of their pastoral care responsibilities, we have invited all schools to training sessions developed under the Wellbeing for Education Return rollout. This training, designed to enable schools to use psychological education to better manage the impact of coronavirus, has been developed by the Anna Freud Center, Mind Education, the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and the Department for Education and Health England. The Wokingham Educational Psychology Service and School Improvement Service have reviewed the materials and shared this bespoke package for use within Wokingham settings. This term, our teams have come together again to deliver further sessions to senior members of staff in settings so they can support their students, focusing on specific areas such as bereavement and loss, supporting recovery from anxiety and low mood and trauma in the context of COVID-19. In addition, the local authority, in partnership with the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, has commissioned COOTH, which is a free, safe and anonymous counselling service online for children and young people between 11 and 25 years of age. And in addition to that, many schools and settings will have accessed ARC, youth counselling in Wokingham,
right,
or made referrals to the Andy Clinic, which offers assessments and treatment for children and young people experiencing anxiety disorder and depression. We also have specific training for students at school.
Could I cut across you, please, Councillor Clark? Yeah, I'm hoping for a few seconds at the end always. Thank you for that answer. Do you have a very quick supplementary at all?
No, that's really very encouraging. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Ullacrin. We now go to Richard Shredgett. Would you like to ask your question of Gregor Murray, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I was pleased to see that the winter 2020 Wokingham Borough News includes an article on mental health and well-being during lockdown. I was disappointed that the new, excellent and council-funded Wokingham Recovery College was not mentioned. Can you assure me that the Recovery College will get a full page in the spring edition, enabling residents to find out about and apply for the wide range of online courses, all designed to promote mental well-being?
Thank you very much for your question. And just to clarify why I'm answering it and not Councillor Marget's, it's because this is a comms question Woking Borough News falls under my portfolio rather than his. It is correct that there was no article about the Recovery College in the winter edition of the Borough News, simply because the college only opened after the Borough News was sent to print. We start planning the Borough News about 3 months in advance, and at that time the Recovery College just was not ready to be released. But I would agree with you that the college provides an excellent service, which is why it has been funded by the council and why it has been extensively promoted with news releases to announce the launch and regular social media updates that have included monthly promotion of the courses available and case studies from students. Facebook posts alone about the college have reached over 17,000 views. It's also been included more than once in the Woking Borough Connect direct email system that gets sent out to over 40,000 residents and has an over 65% open rate. We will be continuing to promote the new college in a variety of ways going forward, and I can assure you that that will be included in the next edition of the Borough News when it goes out in early spring, in which we're planning a full page on mental health support that's available to all of our borough residents.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Frederick, do you have a quick supplementary at all?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Peter Humphreys, would you like to ask your question, please, of Councillor Charlotte Haytham-Taylor?
Despite the many empty units in Peach Place, the council decided to press on with destroying Elms Field to create even more empty units. Whilst COVID hasn't helped, these units predate it, and many have been vacant for many of the past 2 years. Yet even during the pandemic, several new businesses, not including ones relocating a few hundred metres to take advantage of rent-free holiday, have opened in the borough. Would you please state how much, if any, income has been generated in the shop units at Elms Field as a result of the regeneration, and how does this compare with the original budget?
Thank you very much for your question. Contrary to your statement in your question, far from being unoccupied, the regeneration is nearly full to capacity. 90% of the units are let by income. With this and the strong residential sales being made, the regeneration is already proving a huge success for the council and generating good levels of income. The income achieved in the current year is sufficient to cover the project costs. Indeed, the income is set to grow each year as more businesses open up and receipts received going to pay down the debt. Forecasts currently identify income in excess of finance costs for 900k, £1.1 million and £1.5 million for the next 3 years. This is money that will be used to fund the council services across the borough. As a note, this also includes the rent-free period, which forms part of the project costs and is an industry best practice to help support new businesses while they fit out and start to trade. I certainly do not recognise your quite misleading description of empty for years, as many of the businesses had already signed up or started their fit out, whilst many of our building contractors were still on site. This includes Elmsfield, where the council only took possession of the development when it was completed last September, by which time several of the businesses were already up and running along Elms Walk. Others have followed on in a few months since. I'm pleased to confirm that out of the remaining units, 4 are already under offer, with 2 of them currently going through legal processes. And I'm looking forward to shortly being able to announce the new and exciting new tenants. Of the few that remain at Elmsfield, we're keen to ensure that we select the right tenants and ones that are a good fit for the town for the longer term. However, we continue to receive interest in these along with the former Clinton's unit that remains with the business's administrators. Our letting agents carry on reinforcing to us the positive interest being received and advise us that as a town we're ahead of the game. Indeed, in fact, so much many new businesses have continued to sign up and open units despite COVID, not just in Wokingham's regeneration, but right across the town centre. It's a massive testament to Wokingham and the catalyst of our regeneration project.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I've just got one sentence.
One sentence, okay.
It's a clear sign that where others might struggle, Wokingham remains on the road to a strong and vibrant recovery. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Ms. Humphreys, do you have a very quick supplementary or not?
I do. I'm most amazed by that answer to say that 90% of the units have been let. As you can be seen in the photo I took a few days ago behind me, they're all empty. But let's move on. On a similar theme, 5 houses were built and completed more than 2 years ago in Rose Street as part of the Peach Place scheme. Last month, the asking price on the still empty houses reduced yet again. Would you please enlighten us to how much the paper loss to date is on these properties?
I'll have to give you a written answer in terms of the numbers, the exact numbers of properties. But what I can tell you is, at the moment, we have released. Let me just get some of the figures in terms of some of the properties we've released. We're doing it, of course, right across the borough, right across Wokingham town. So I don't have some of it's in partnership with David Wilson Homes, and we have completed, a huge number of houses, but not all of them at this time. We have we've completed all reserved 21 homes, and despite only, I think, 10 being fully built, and we've just released another 12 onto the market. So by trying to sort of put across that it's all doom and gloom in Wokingham, it's completely not the case. And actually, I think your photograph was in front of 2 of the units down at Elmsfield that are actually let. Thank you.
There's no one in them. You can't go in.
Sorry.
Sorry, they are already let, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. We then move on to the next question, please. Frank Moore, please to ask the question of Councillor John Housel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the past few weeks, the Council, through the Standards Committee and the Audit Committee, have shown to be infringing the rules of the Council Constitution. As regards the Standards Committee, this has been going on for nearly 2 years. These are serious breaches of the Wokingham Borough Council Constitution and reflect badly in the eyes of the public on the Council. As such, I would like to ask, through the leader of the Council, for these serious shortcomings to be formally investigated through an independent person, such as a retired QC or a judge. Thank you.
As this question is one of the finance function, John Kaiser's taking it, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your question. Councillor Halsall has already explained that there was no constitutional breach with regards to the composition of the Standards Committee and why this was so. You then go on to suggest that the report considered by the Audit Committee at the meeting on the 23rd of November was changed before being presented to the Executive on the 28th of January. I can categorically confirm this was not the case. The report reviewed by the Audit Committee was presented to the Executive fully and unabridged as required in the Constitution. Audit Committee is required to review progress against Treasury management indicators, which they rightly did, and note further information in the report. At the Executive on the 28th of January, it was asked and did note Appendix A, the Treasury Management Mid-Term Report, which was agreed at the Audit Committee on the 23rd, 2020. This stated quite clearly in the covering report recommendations, and furthermore is covered in more detail at the second paragraph of the executive summary of the executive report. Therefore, the report the Audit Committee debated and agreed democratically is the one being presented to the Council and does not need to be presented back to the Audit Committee. However, in passing on the report by the Audit Committee to the Executive, our Statutory Chief Finance Officer thought it would be helpful for the Executive and the public to be aware of the broader impact of the Treasury management activity by including the income generated by our commercial activities funded by our borrowings. This information was conveyed by way of a covering report, and I would consider it to have been very helpful, particularly given the recent media debate around the cost of the Council's debt to the local taxpayer. So the mid-term Treasury report presented to the Audit Committee was not changed. The Audit Committee discharged their responsibility under the Constitution, and the Chief Financial Officer is required to provide a covering report passing the mid-year report onto the Executive. There is no constitutional breach here whatever.
Thank you,
Councillor. What I do find, thank you. Is that it, Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Yes, we try to stick to the time limits under the guidance. But do you have a very quick supplementary?
I do have a quick one. I will try and make it as quick as I can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Councillor, for not answering the question. Councillor Housel Wokingham Borough Council is daily becoming more like that of Hanforth Parish Council under your leadership for the following reasons. It's chaotic. 3 quick answers. Your response relating to 2 serious breaches of the Constitution. The comment made that was going to be made by Councillor Conway tonight, saying that the querying why the council bother having a constitution when it can be so easily overridden. And thirdly, publishing Ernst & Young report for the Extraordinary Audit Committee on the 22nd of February, when Ernst & Young state the report is, and I quote from their letter of the 12th.
Sorry,
I will be
stop from the letter, please, and allow Councillor Kaiser to answer.
No, I've not asked the question yet, please, Mr. Mayor.
Very quickly.
The report says it should not be published, and it has been published, that report. And in last week's Wokingham Times, Councillor Housel, as leader of the council, says the buck stops here. So can you please advise Councillor Housel how you intend to address these issues to salvage the credibility of Wokingham Borough Council under your leadership in the eyes of the electorate? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that was a question for John. I would just say, Mr. Moore, you obviously weren't listening because I answered both your questions.
I'm sorry.
Right.
You did.
Okay, thank you. Well, we need to move on, but clearly not going to agree on that. Could Beth Rowland ask her question, please, of Councillor Charlotte Haytham-Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Charlotte. Some years ago, when I was a borough councillor and sat on the working party that dealt with the regeneration of Wokingham Town Centre, the plan that was money generated by this would go to regenerate the other town centres in the borough. And I was really pleased to hear you say this evening that things are going really well and you're planning to make money next year. Please, will you tell me how much has Wokingham's regeneration cost in total and how much profit it has returned to date?
Thank you very much for your question. The Wokingham regeneration to date has proved to be a huge success, and the programme is progressing well, with both Peach Place and the commercial part of Elmsfield complete. The residential sections of Elmsfield, in conjunction with our partner David Wilson Homes and the Carnival Hub, is now under construction and due for completion next summer. The scheme has won several awards for its placemaking, quality and financial approach also. There were several objectives behind the Wokingham Regeneration Project with many outputs. Its key purpose was first and foremost to deliver a town centre fit for and reflective of the then existing and now growing population of the town. Our council chose to act as developer in this process because it gave us much more control over the design, the layout, the architecture, and importantly, the types of uses and businesses coming into the town. And we were clear from the onset that we wanted to resist the national trend of introducing the same old national tenants and ensuring that Wokingham retained its feel and offer from local independent traders. This we've done very successfully, and it's one of the reasons why Wokingham is proving so popular. Despite the current pandemic, whilst the majority of town centres up and down the country are struggling to identify tenants, Wokingham continues to buck the trend with lots of interest from new tenants. As I said before, 90% are let across both of the schemes, and we have another 2 leases currently going through the legal process. In terms of residential sales, there is enormous interest in Elmsfield, with the majority of the standalone homes being reserved ahead of being built. Currently, on the standalone residential scheme with our partners DWH, we have completed or have had reserved 21 homes, despite only 10 of those being fully built, and we've just released another 12 onto the market. The total cost of delivering all schemes will be ascertained upon final completion of all of the schemes, but based upon the viability and the financial appraisals established before work commenced and updated more recently, the total cost is expected to be 113 million, creating asset value of 162 million and 48 million, which is realised through residential sales. In addition, when the scheme is fully operational, the surplus income is expected to be around 2 million per annum, and over the fullness of time, when debt is fully repaid, the surplus will be in the region of 5 to 6 million per annum. So as well as,
Sorry, could I cut that? Do you have, Beth, a very quick supplementary?
I do, Chairman, and when I sat on that committee, it wasn't clear to me anyway that it's going to be not in my lifetime that any returns are made for Woodley. The figures that you've given projected over many years, could you give me some idea of when other towns in the borough, including Woodley, will benefit from all this money that's been spent on Wokingham?
I think I made it quite clear in the actual answer that the money from this goes to pay for other council services. This is taking capital and producing revenue from both selling houses, but also from rental income. We've already started regeneration in other areas around the borough already, despite what we're doing here. And we've already regenerated Phoenix, for example. We're already working on Gorse Ride. We're working on other smaller schemes. We've already purchased through the property investment scheme. We've already purchased buildings in Twyford, in Woodley. We're not stopping at just Wokingham, but I think it's really clear to make this point, and I'm not sure why you haven't recognised it having been involved early on, that this scheme is not solely related to regenerating other areas of the borough. That happens on its own, is not linked to this. This is to produce revenue to help fund other vital council services, because we don't have as much money coming into the council from central government any longer. In fact, we were threatened with negative revenue support grant, as you know, and at the moment we're at zero for that. And it's always with a longer view. This scheme is if you think of it like a household mortgage, it takes a while to pay back, and this has a payback over 20 years.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Could I move to Anne Chadwick, please, to ask your question of Councillor Gregor Murray?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my question is, in July 2019, you announced that the council was committing to energy efficiency upgrades and solar panels for the roofs of our schools. Can you give me an update on how many schools have had energy efficiency upgrades and solar installations so far, and how many are planned for this year, please?
Thank you for your question. I'm pleased to advise that despite COVID affecting our ability to get onto school sites for understandable reasons, the energy efficiency programme is progressing at pace. The key elements being LED lighting replacements to over 10 different sites. This equates to a carbon saving of about 8 tonnes per year and an annual saving to our schools of about £3,000. We have a plan to install over 9 additional school sites with the LED lighting replacements by the end of April 2021, saving a further 28 tonnes and an additional £11,000 per year for our schools. Loft insulation to 5 different sites. This equates to a carbon saving of about 2.5 tonnes per year and an annual energy saving of about £1,500 for our schools. We have 3 more sites planned before June 2021. Replacement glazing in 3 different schools. This equates to a carbon saving of just over a tonne per annum and an annual energy saving for our schools of about £500 per year. And solar panels have been installed to Arborfield Primary School and Addington School, saving 18 tonnes of CO2 annually and an approximate value saving of £8,900 a year for our schools. In addition, we have a plan to install further solar PV arrays at 6 schools before the end of summer, with another 3 that are likely before the end of September. And we have another 20 that we're talking to at the moment that we will move forward with once the COVID lockdown has passed us by. We've also added controls to 5 sites, totaling 2 tonnes per annum of saving and an annual energy saving of about £1,000 a year. All of what I've referenced above equates to an annual CO2 saving of about 83.5 tonnes so far per year and a cost saving to our schools of £3,900 per annum, which is going back into their budgets.
Thank you. Can I ask if you have a very brief supplementary at all?
Yes, thank you very much. Can you tell me which schools you're currently working on with energy efficiency, lighting and solar panels, please?
In terms of the energy efficiency and lighting schemes, there's quite a long list, but it includes some of the biggest schools in our borough, so places like Bullmarsh School, St Crispin's, Rivermead Primary, Loddon Primary, Hawkden, Bearwood, Southlake, The Holt, Shinfield St Mary's. In terms of the solar panels, The 6 that we're working with at the moment are Highwood Primary School, Shinfield St Mary's, Loddon Primary School, Forest Comprehensive, White Knights, and one that I know is particularly close to your own heart, Woodley Primary School.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Could I move on now very quickly? This may be the last question to Jane Davenport, who wants to ask a question of Councillor Parry Bath.
Hello. David Wilson Homes have destroyed Montague Park Sound for the last 2 consecutive years to plant a wildflower meadow so that Wokingham Council will adopt the site. The Sang is home to endangered species and species protected by law, namely roe deer and hedgehogs. The Sang's plant life was killed indiscriminately by spraying glyphosate, a chemical described by the World Health Organization as probably carcinogenic to humans, and banned in countless countries around the world, many boroughs in the UK. A chemical that, when ingested by humans or animals, can cause internal burns, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, not to mention its links with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and the decline of our bee population. The Sang was further destroyed by ploughing, leaving huge furrows, turning it into an unusable mud pit. In view of the total failure by David Wilson Homes to plant a wildflower meadow in 2019, and in the absence of wildlife survey data, residents themselves have demonstrated species inhabit this Sang that are protected by law. What have Wokingham Council done to ensure the 2020 attempt has been successfully carried out? Because if this second attempt fails, the meadow cannot be destroyed in 2021 for a 3rd consecutive year.
Thank you for your question, Jane. An excellent question. And you're absolutely right. David Wilson Homes are responsible for the Sang at the moment at Montague Park, and it is David Wilson Homes who have carried out all the planting work on the site. But to answer your question, because of the 2019 attempt failed, we wanted to make sure that the 2020 planting went ahead successfully, and to do that, we ensured that the existing vegetation was effectively removed. This was to prevent existing plants from competing with wildflower seed mix and preventing effective growth. So, and we also verified the seed mix that was purchased by the developer to prevent any repetition of the errors that were made in 2019. We also checked and ensured that the ground was properly prepared to ensure maximum seed contact with the ground, and therefore give the greatest chance of germination and success. We also made site inspections before and following the laying of the seed to verify that the seeds have been properly laid and correctly laid. And additionally, we ensured that works were communicated by signage to users of the particular section of the Sang, and we ensured that the developer laid the seeds at the optimum time of the year for mimicking the growth and germination would normally happen to nature.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, and those are simply the points that we've done to make sure that the 2020 planting would be successful, but it's still down to them. The responsibility is theirs.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a very quick supplementary or not?
Yes, I do. I'd like to ask, did David Wilson Homes carry out wildlife surveys prior to destroying Montague Park Sang, and when will we see these results?
Well, you'll have to ask David Wilson Homes, I'm afraid, Jane, because they are still responsible for that. Thank you.
It's your responsibility as part of the leader of the...
No, we are not. No. We haven't taken over the responsibility of the Sang yet. It's
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm afraid that gets us to the end of the public question time. We've run out of time. Those couple of people who still have questions to come will get written answers to their questions. Thank you. We can now move on to agenda item 93.
Mr. Mayor, can I propose we extend this part of the meeting?
I'd
like to propose an extension so that the remaining few members of the public who have yet to have their questions answered can have their questions answered.
I will second that proposal, Councillor Kerr.
Okay, well, in that case, there are 3 questions left. If we can get through those 3 questions, I think maybe 10 minutes or whatever questions are there. We allow 10 minutes or so to get them through, please. If you can get to the question very quickly without a long preamble and the answer being prompt as well. Thank you.
Mr.
So
Mayor,
I'll now ask Peter Dennis.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is it possible that as we are extending for 10 minutes, Mr. Moore may get an answer to his second question? I don't think he actually got an answer to his second question from Mr. Halsall.
That was the thing about the Standards Committee, I think. I've got on my notes here. Well, I think you ask a question, you get a response. You ask supplementary, you get an answer. There may be some view that the questioner hasn't had his question answered adequately, but we can't go around the same loop again, unfortunately. So, or fortunately. So if we can move on then, please. Can Peter Dennis ask his question of Councillor Pauline Jorgensen? And if you get the question quickly, thank you.
Thank you for giving the chance to do it. For the brevity, I'll cut the question short, but essentially the business case for the park and ride doesn't stack up, bearing in mind the climate emergency. So how will this park and ride contribute to the climate emergency plan, bearing in mind the continued need to monitor its usage?
Hi, Mr. Dennis. Nice to see you in person. The Copped Beach Park and Ride has a full WebTag compliant business case which was completed in order to attract funding from the local enterprise partnership. This case has been independently assessed and verified. Business case suggests that users parking in Coppet Beach will travel to both Bracknell and Wokingham town centres, reducing the number of single occupancy car journeys and carbon emissions. The park and ride was actually proposed and designed before the council declared a climate emergency as a means of reducing congestion to the town centre. The Climate Emergency Action Plan carbon reductions rely partly on the increase in park and ride and train use. So the business case wasn't around climate emergency, but it does help to contribute to that. It's likely that carbon saving will be for those travelling from the east of the borough to access Wokingham town centre. It's not just for people who live around Wokingham, as well as for those within the borough accessing Bracknell town centre. Even though some of these people may not be travelling from within the borough, a large number will be. I hope you'll agree that cutting their carbon intensive journey is still a good thing. The aim of the car park is to reduce the number of car trips into Wokingham, thus reducing mileage by private car, which delivers carbon reduction and reduces congestion. Finally, we will be investigating the possibility of providing other links, including between Copped Beach and Twyford Station, to improve public transport access to the express train network, further reducing car journeys.
Thank you very much. Do you have a quick supplementary at all, Mr. Dennis?
I certainly do. Thank you for that answer. Looking at the financials for it, this car park's costing 2.7 million, which roughly equates to 5% of the climate budget from previous years. But the actual saving is going to be less than 0.005% of the climate budget. When we look at this costing, a maximum cost of a cycle lane, according to Manchester, when they built it, is 1.5 million per kilometre. And such as I would contend that this money would have been better spent on a proper cycling facility that actually did go down London Road, that stretched from Copped Beach to the town centre.
Okay.
So,
Councillor Jorgensen, can I ask you to give a very prompt reply to that, please?
How does that equate?
Well, it equates, as I said before, Peter, because this case was approved before the climate emergency. It wasn't based on climate emergency. It was based on reducing congestion. As you've seen, and you will hear a lot more later, we've got some very significant plans for improving cycleways, and we're about to improve them further. It isn't an either or, but this plan was before climate emergency and was not predicated, and the business case was not predicated on climate change achievements. It was predicated on a good business case, which was independently assessed.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jorgensen. Move on very quickly now to Mr. Keith Carr to ask your question of Councillor John Halsall, please.
Thank you very much. John, there's a faux pas earlier in the year, last year, and there's an ongoing covert campaign by right-wing activists and political organisations to delegitimise the call for fairness, equality and justice that has resonated all over the world since the start of the Black Lives Matter movement. Do you expect your commitment that you made to the community and given in writing on behalf of WBC to be honoured? Or is it the council's inaction and unwillingness to engage with this concerns of the BME residents just part of your personal delegitimisation strategy?
Councillor Halsall.
Keith, how very nice to see you.
Very nice to see you too.
As I've said to you many times, my mandate is as leader of Woking Borough Council. UK and universal issues are for another forum. I neither comment upon them, nor do I advocate Woking Borough Council aligning itself to them or distancing itself from them. I'm not given to virtue signalling. My ambition is that all residents of Woking Borough feel valued, safe, secure, and that inequality is tackled, discrimination challenged, and diversity celebrated. My focus is to create the culture and practices within the council and the borough to not only identify current concerns and remedy them, but also address future concerns as they occur. We have been and will continue to reach out to all the community. Indeed, I understand you've had discussions with the officers, and I have met, which I can say was very enjoyable and very productive. As set out in our community vision, we are committed to ensuring that Woking Borough is a great place to live, learn, work and grow, and a safe place to do business. We want to enrich the lives of all our residents in safe, strong communities and tackle inequality together. We have various important roles in tackling inequality, and we'll fulfill these as a service provider by making sure we meet different needs for different people and ensure that we treat everyone fairly. An employer by making sure we treat workers and potential workers fairly, offering a safe and accessible workplace free from discrimination. And as community leaders by working with residents, partners, councillors and staff to enrich the lives of everybody. We are currently working to develop an equality plan 2021-25. In it, we will prioritise listening and learning from our communities and use this information to effectively deliver improved services that work well for everyone. We will actively champion our commitment to equality, diversity and inclusion and aim to build diverse and engaged workforces where everybody's expected. May I finish this,
yes,
Mr.
very
Mayor?
briefly, yes.
Well, it's another couple of paragraphs, but I think
okay.
I think it's
if you speak quickly, yes.
We are utilising the local. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We're utilising the Local Government Association Equality Framework to continually review and improve our services for people with protected characteristics, as defined by the Equality Act. Protected characteristics are age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. We are embedding the 4 elements of the LGA framework into our planned work programmes to ensure that we assess and track our achievements, which are categorised as developing, achieving and excellent. Understanding and working with our communities, leadership and organisational commitment, responsive services and customer care, diverse and engaged workforce. The framework will also be used to compare our performance with that of our peers to ensure continuous learning and improvement. And I hope to bring that to the executive in March.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Very briefly, Mr. Carr, do you have a...
Yes, very briefly, Mr. Chairman. As a black British-born Englishman to a fellow traveller, that being an Italian immigrant, when do you intend to reactivate the BME forum, which you'll be perfectly entitled to attend as a foreigner as well, and probably one of protected characteristics, so that we can hold to account, someone to account for what is being done in our name, knowing that the April elections or the May elections are coming up soon?
Okay, Councillor Halsall?
We're both British, Keith.
Well, I'm English.
Right. Thank you for that then. Interesting what's covered there. Time for, I'll allow time for this very last question now then. Can Mike Smith please ask his question of Councillor John Kaiser? Thank you, gentlemen.
Good evening, and thank you very much for this opportunity. On page 1 of the Appendix B in the papers in your budget papers, the capital programme, under the item roads and transport, there are 2 lines with exactly the same wordings. The project name is bridge strengthening and the description is continued enhancements to highway structures. One is a modest £225,000 per year for each of the next 3 years, and the other is a substantial £3.8 million occurring only in year 22-23. You may remember me inquiring a number of times about the replacement of the footbridge adjacent to Early Railway Station that spans the railway and the motorway, which I think is in an advanced state of dangerous decay. I'm sure there's a plausible reason for the apparent duplication of these lines in the budget, but what I'm interested in is how much of this capital programme is allocated to the replacement of that bridge.
Okay, thank you very much for your question.
Should be a very short answer.
Okay, I'll be as quick as I can. The item in the programme is called bridge strengthening. It continues enhancement to highway structure, which is 3.8 million allocated in 22-23 is solely to fund the project to replace the WBC-owned Early Station footbridge, which links Nightingale Road in Woodley to Early Station forecourt, but not to the platforms. The other, which is the £225,000, is allocated for each of the 3 years to undertake various bridge strengthening work as part of the programme of planned maintenance. On reflection, the council, or I, accept that having the two items with the same name and description in the capital programme is not ideal, and we will endeavour in future to ensure that we break these out in future years.
Thank you, Councillor Kaiser. Do you have a further brief supplementary at all, Mr. Smith?
Simple question really is are there any other such duplications that will confuse the layperson that I am?
Councillor Kaiser?
Yeah, I would suggest that there's not, but obviously you found one. Well done, Mike.
Well, I only had a very, very limited time to look. I'm sure I'd have found more if it had been published a bit earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us then, we end the question session now. It's had a good run for its money. We now go on to agenda item 93, which is petitions. Does anyone wish to hand in a petition? If you do, can you make yourself known? Put a hand in the air, show of hands. I can't see anything. In the absence of a hand. A few more seconds. Right, there are no hands shown, so there are no petitions. We now move on to a more substantial item in terms of time and importance here, which is agenda item 94, the medium-term financial plan and associated reports. We basically have 1.5 hours to debate this item with for all 4 reports, and I understand that Councillor Halsall that you are going to propose these 4 reports. Is that okay? Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, sir.
Right. So you need to propose. I imagine you ought to be naming all 4 because the debate will be all 4 together, won't they?
Indeed, they will.
We're not doing them separately. So you're doing all 4. And do you have a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you. And before we go on to you speaking yourself, Councillor Halsall, it's difficult to table the document in a virtual meeting, and one of the requirements of these reports is extra information in the appendices. Appendix A, for instance, which is the statutory resolution to the medium-term financial plan. Because that appendix is quite large and it's not easy to show on the screen, it has, however, been sent to all members, including a follow-up mail, and is available on the agenda page of the website. Okay, so at this point then, as you are the proposer, Councillor Halsall, and Councillor Kaiser the seconder, would you like to speak now? You have up to 12 minutes, starting now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who could have possibly known at the last year's budget what a year it would be? The budget is our statement of our vision for the future. We, Woking Borough Council, are the golden thread, the indispensable and fundamental partner joining all the institutions, businesses and residents of the borough. It is a measure of our prowess that the borough is one of the first choices to live and work and grow. We have no other purpose than to serve our residents. We strive to produce the optimal service for the minimum cost and seek to obtain our residents' acclaim and affection for so doing, whilst diversity, equality and compassion and fairness are at the heart of everything we do. In short, we endeavour to be the natural and beloved friend and partner of our residents, whose complaints, comments and concerns are captured as valuable feedback and signals. We are not a faceless monolith. We are 1,100 members of staff and councillors whose central purpose and mission is to continuously improve the lives of residents. We want the council to be an employer of choice and pride. We can only fulfil this role if our finances are strong. Thanks to all our officers and councillors they are. I have constantly preached an ethos that officers are bold, take initiatives, try novel approaches and learn from the inevitable mistakes. It is only someone who does nothing who makes no mistakes. I'm delighted to say this creed has taken root and we have achieved remarkable things. Whilst the responsibility for all that is done, particularly the bad stuff, is mine, what is achieved through innovation, risk, flexibility and hard work is a credit to all the officers and councillors, all of whom I'm understandably proud. As the lowest funded unitary in England, to be the best is hardly good enough. The budget is ambitious, seeks to fuel recovery, maintain and improve services. Our ambition is only tempered by our resources. We will tirelessly work to help those in need across the borough, whilst continuing to deliver excellent and good value services to all our residents. We will protect and look after our vulnerable children and adults, both through the pandemic and afterwards. We will keep our traffic moving and improve our highways by dealing with congestion, tackling the blight of potholes and investing in intelligent traffic systems. We will take bold and ambitious action to do our part to achieve a carbon neutral borough. We will invest further in our schools and give our young people the best opportunities in life through a good education at a local school. We will continue to fight overdevelopment and support building homes only in the right places. We will build more affordable homes and council homes. We will ensure our borough continues to be one of the best places to live. We will tackle antisocial behaviour, environmental health, air quality issues and fly tipping. We will work with our health partners to maintain resident mobility, combat isolation and mental health. We will strive to help our residents stay safe during the COVID pandemic and do as much as we can to help them protect their families and livelihoods. Furthermore, and most significantly in the context of this council meeting, I'm this evening putting forward a budget proposal that invests significantly in services much needed by our community. It remarkably avoids making any cuts to services and still leaves our financial standing in a strong and sound position. General fund balances are forecast to be just under 9 million at March 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, the budget I put before you has capital investment of 445 million over the next 3 years. 160 million on roads and transport, including new park and rides, 9-mile extension, highways investment strategy, flood alleviation schemes and traffic signal upgrade programme. 156 million on housing, local economy and regeneration, including Gorse Ride Estate redevelopment, delivering over 200 affordable homes. 71 million on the climate emergency, including developing solar farms to create a renewable energy infrastructure, energy reduction projects at existing properties to make them energy efficient, managing congestion by improving traffic flow and reducing incidents which cause delays. 23 million on the environment, including refurbishment of leisure facilities, play area enhancement projects and carnival pool redevelopment. 13 million on internal services, including upgrades to cyber security and IT to improve services to residents. And 12 million on children's services and schools, including new schools, Arborfield Primary, Matthews Green Primary and new special educational needs at Winnish Farm, maintenance of school buildings and IT equipment for children in care. 11 million for adult social care, including a new dementia home, community equipment, learning disability respite centre and supported living accommodation. Next year, we will be injecting growth and special items budgets in adult social care of approximately 2.5 million and children's services of 3.2 million. This will help us to continue to respond to the needs of our growing elderly population and provides the resources needed to meet our objective of getting children's services to good. Our capital investment of a staggering 445 million has only 11 million of this falling on our council taxpayers. The rest is all supported. In fact, as a result of our numerous innovative commercial ventures over the years, the impact of all the council's borrowing will actually be an overall credit of £13.64 per Band D council payer next year, rising to a credit of £62.86 in year 3. I consider this to be an immense achievement and a further reflection of our outstanding financial management. Our borrowings, far from being at the 700 million which the opposition claims and running away from us, is budgeted to be just under 400 million at the end of next year. In reality, it is likely to be nearer 300 million given the necessary level of slippage on the capital programme in the future years. Our net borrowings, after taking into account our cash balances, will be somewhere between 200 and 265 million. It surely must give us the greatest confidence that backing this debt, we have a total asset value rising to 1.4 billion. What an incredibly strong position this is. Our revenue budget proposals are equally impressive, whose cornerstone is recovery. We will be actively working to create new jobs with a variety of initiatives already advanced, including attracting enterprises into the borough and retraining erstwhile hospitality and retail to care sector. As the member for regeneration said, our town centre and the lettings are very buoyant. We will be laying out the new local plan proposals in mid-year after having fought against our own government's white paper proposals on housing numbers, whose success was a contingent on being a Conservative-led council talking to a Conservative government, and lowered the target from some 1,650 houses per annum to less than half, but that's still too much. We will be taking decisive steps to improve our environmental health, licensing and trading standards for residents so that neighbourhoods, community safety, public protection, enforcement work together in an integrated way locally, and that we are more effectively tackling the issues that are of utmost importance to residents. We will be reviewing in depth our waste collection and processing services, shared legal and other shared services. Despite the financial impact on COVID, both this year and into the future, and despite still being the lowest funded council in the country, we continue to significantly invest in our care services. We are proposing no cuts to services, something I'm aware is being forced on councils across the country who are having to vote on stark service reduction packages. We can protect our services and invest in them because of our strong financial management and innovative commercial approach as to how we run our services. We propose a further 6.3 million in service efficiencies and income streams next year, rising to 16.2 million in 2023-24. The details are set out in my budget proposal. It is this relentless work that enables additional investment services with no cuts whilst maintaining a safe and healthy general fund balance of just under 9 million at March 2022. Although it gives me great satisfaction to propose this budget for our residents, I remain acutely aware we have a great responsibility to continue to respond to the needs of our residents as the impact of the pandemic is felt beyond this financial year. I'm confident with the competent councillors and officers of this council who have responded so immensely since the outbreak in early 2020 that we will step up to make whatever difference we can. Again, I stress this is only possible because we have previously succeeded and will continue to succeed in strong and stable financial management of this authority. It is indeed in the spirit of this that I put forward the 2021-22 budget tonight, and the statutory resolution Appendix A circulated by Democratic Services earlier this week. It is an investment in our community which our indefatigable financial management endeavours have made possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I commend this budget to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Right, Councillor Kaiser, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
No, I'll speak now, Mayor, for brevity, so we can get on with things.
Okay, speak now. You carry on speaking now then.
Okay. All right. I mean, very much as the leader said, who would have thought in their wildest dreams we would still be sitting here in lockdown with the country having one of the biggest deficits since the Second World War, with hundreds of thousands of businesses closed and millions of people sat at home, working or otherwise. It's all a very gloomy picture. I'm hoping now we are on the home straight with new vaccines being rolled out quicker than almost anywhere else in the world, but we are not out of the woods yet. This is just to set the strange, unusual times, which is the backdrop to this council's budget for 21-22. Today, the budget will be presented to the council will be a budget for Wokinham's future, a budget that is designed to get the borough back on its feet and to look and to address areas and deliver services which are important to residents, not just today, but also in the future. A budget which has been consulted on across the political spectrum within the council over the last 6 months and will hopefully be agreed by all political parties present at the council tonight. A budget that will continue to help residents who need help. A budget for Woodley, Lower Earley, Twyford, Wokingham Town and all the parts of the borough and all the residents who have chosen to live and work in our fantastic borough, bringing up their families, making Wokingham Borough what it is today. A borough with excellent schools, great facilities and care facilities. A budget which allows us to address the low levels of poverty which have no place in our borough. The budget is unashamedly driven by the needs of the residents of the borough. More importantly, it is a budget that is safe and deliverable. As I've said on many occasions, that a council that is broke is no use to anyone. I recommend this budget. It shows no cuts and reduces no services and will help the borough get back on its feet and can continue to deliver those high level of services the residents expect and deserve. As we come out of the shadow of COVID-19, you will see other initiatives. As I say, we are well placed to pursue the goal to seek to eradicate poverty and provide high quality services for all those residents of the borough, and will continue to do so by helping boost jobs and business throughout the borough. Mr. Mayor, the patient won't die on my watch.
Malcolm, you're on mute.
Talking to yourself again, Malcolm.
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I managed to mess some cables up and I accidentally muted myself. Sorry about that. Yes, Councillor Lindsay Ferris, would you like to speak next? And I'll keep my hands away from the keyboard.
Thank you, Malcolm. Good evening. I hope everyone will be able to join the National Day of Reflection that is planned for noon on the 23rd of March. This is exactly 1 year after the first lockdown. It is to provide people across our area and the country with an opportunity to remember family, friends and others who have died or been significantly impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. It not only includes people who had COVID-19, but all other people who suffered as well. I should like to thank all the Woking Borough Council officers and staff who have been actively involved with dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic in our borough. I should in particular like to thank staff in adult social services and children's services, as well as all those who were seconded onto COVID-19 duties. Our thanks also go to the voluntary sector who played a pivotal role in delivering much needed food, prescriptions and other help to our residents during the pandemic. There is one area I have mentioned before, but I want to restate here. This is the Woking Borough Council protocol developed last April by the Director of Adult Social Care, Matt Pope, in conjunction with other senior officers to prevent patients being discharged from our local hospitals into care homes without being clear of COVID-19. This is something that I believe has saved many lives, not just our local people, but across the country. I believe Woking Borough Council was the first authority in the country to produce such a protocol. It was followed by many other local authorities shortly afterwards. This was nearly 2 weeks before the government changed the policy to discharge people from hospital with only 2 hours notice without any testing. I believe this needs national recognition and is, in my view, one of the most significant actions taken by Woking Borough Council in the time I have been on the council. I should also like to thank the leader and deputy leader of the council and senior officers for the regular briefings that have been given to all party leaders since last March. I now turn to the budget. This is a Conservative budget. They have the majority on the council at the moment and will be the budget that will be approved as a result. However, should there be a change of administration this May, then we, the Liberal Democrats, would have to use this budget as a starting point. We, however, have a different set of priorities and as a result do not support all aspects of this budget. One area of concern is that it comes across as being a business as usual budget rather than one that provides a clear route to recovery once the pandemic has subsided. This, in my view, shows a lack of strategic thinking and vision by the Conservatives. I should also like to highlight that the adult social care element of the council tax bill will now be 9% of the overall council tax collected. This represents somewhere between £150 and £300 of your annual council tax. The Liberal Democrats believe this should only be a short-term measure and that a nationally agreed means of financing adult social care needs to be developed for the future. During the last year, the council has lost significant income, including from leisure services, where a loss of around £1.7 to £2 million has been forecast. Plus, there are others, as many services have been closed. In addition, it has had additional cost, especially associated with the support for COVID-19 issues. That is why the level of borrowing or debt incurred by the council is so important. I'm sure we all remember large, well-known companies financially overstretching themselves, often with unfortunate outcomes. It is the role of councillors to ensure that we do not follow the same path as some of those now extinct companies. Throughout the year, the government has provided the council with financial support, including grants for local businesses, care homes, and to cover some of the losses in income due to the pandemic. I applaud the flexibility shown by the council officers in the discretion taken in enabling local businesses to achieve at least some financial support when initially they were not eligible. We need to remember that many people will still have financial problems for a considerable while, even as things improve. Increased unemployment is forecast, and many local businesses will struggle to get going again, and unfortunately some that will not have made it through the pandemic. The council needs to continue to assist in these areas as best as it can and to encourage local people to support our local businesses again. This will not be easy to achieve. We believe there needs to be a structured recovery plan developed to ensure the council is best placed to help. I do not see sufficient evidence of this happening in this Conservative budget. And now, when we are in control, we would focus on. We will continue to provide what support we can to our local businesses, thus when it can happen, encourage our local residents to support our local shops, leisure facilities, libraries, theatres and other activities within the borough again. They will need our help. We would encourage special events across the borough. Mental health and well-being will be a priority at all ages, but especially for our children. We will ensure sufficient support is provided to assist with the increasing levels of domestic abuse that have occurred during the pandemic. This will be one of those areas we would urgently address. This is particularly significant with the introduction of the Domestic Abuse Bill 2020, which is expected to gain assent in April. We will continue to provide what financial support it can to help our local residents who still have financial problems as a result of the pandemic. This will include help with council tax deferred payments, use of the council tax reduction scheme, plus help with rent where Woking Borough Council is the landlord. We shall investigate what other activities can be developed to assist in this area. In time, we would reopen those Woking Borough Council services that have been closed throughout the duration. And throughout 2021, we put in place actions to change the culture of the council from its current we know best arrogant attitude to residents to one where the local residents are at the centre of all actions of the council. This includes greater openness and a willingness to admit its mistakes when they occur, instead of hiding behind such statements as, "It was perfectly legal." During the autumn, the subject of the council's debt raised its head. On one occasion, this subject was raised during a full council meeting. The discussion since then makes interesting reading. Back then, the Tories were talking of the debt being £7.52 per resident per annum. Then briefly, there was mention just before Christmas of a figure around 100 million. And then on the 28th of January 2021 exec meeting, there was mention of a figure of 400 million. And I suggest people watch the video of that meeting. However, this is only the start. Slowly, we are beginning to extract the real level of debt or total borrowing incurred by this arrogant, deceitful Conservative administration. Until now, they have denied there was any debt. My comments on debt were ignored for several years. Now it is being extracted tooth by tooth from them. This is shameful, as they have tried to hide this from our local residents. The Conservatives have mortgaged the council's future for many years to come. Residents need to realise that they are the last resort for the majority of the financial shortfall that should incur at some point in the future. Interest rates are currently low, but they will not remain that way forever. The council will now be burdened by this huge debt for many years to come, and as a result, the council will have to generate additional income every year just to stand still, and who could end up paying? Local residents would have to pay more for services, and some services may end up being cut or removed to make ends meet. This has been an appalling way to behave, and it's our job, the Liberal Democrats, to let everyone know what legacy the Tories are leaving. No matter what mess you leave us, we will deal with it. On the capital programme, there is one issue I should like to mention. I was extremely pleased to see the planning application for the new library and community hub in Twyford was recently approved. It's also pleasing to find that phase 1 of the project, I think it's £740,000, has already been approved. Phase 2 is not financially supported by Woking and Borough Council. Should the Liberal Democrats be in control, we see no reason why Woking Borough Council could not also assist with at least part funding phase 2 of this much delayed and wanted local community facility, and one the local Liberal Democrats have pressed for 20 years. And finally, lead members from the Liberal Democrats team will now further provide more detailed views on the budget, as well as outlining our priorities for the council for when we are in control. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferris. So let's have a look at who's listed to speak. Councillor Jorgensen, Pauline Jorgensen, would you like to speak? Your hand's up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to confirm the highways and transport part of this budget, which reconfirms our continuing commitment to reducing congestion and improving sustainable transport, including walking, cycling, leisure and horse riding facilities. I'm delighted to announce a major investment of 160 million in roads and transport. Of that, 130 million will be for major roads to reduce congestion: the North Woking Distributor Road, the South Woking Distributor Road, the Winnish Relief Road, the completion of the Arborfield Relief Road, the Shinfield East Relief Road, Barkham Bridge improvements, 9 Mile Ride extension to link to the Beaufort Hunt School and onto the A327. These will not only relieve congestion for all our residents, but benefit residents living on quiet roads like Biggs Lane and Park Lane, who for too long have had too much traffic going right past their houses. In addition to that 130 million, there is 30 million more to improve existing facilities, including, as was questioned earlier, the Early Station Bridge, initial design costs for improvements to the A329M, flood alleviation schemes, including flood monitoring improvements, drainage projects, and new sustainable drainage, improved structural maintenance, and more than doubling from 2.28 million a year to between 6 and 7 million a year our structural maintenance budget. In addition, we will be investing significant sums, another 30 million, on alternative transport and congestion improvements. 17 million on further congestion improvements such as smart traffic lights, traffic signal upgrades to improve responsiveness to congestion, congestion sensors, car park space monitoring with intelligent signage and junction monitoring, all to help people get to and from where they're trying to get to more efficiently. We'll also be adding an additional £2.1 million worth of EV charging points, £3 million of improvements to cycleways and footway crossings, and 2.7 million in local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. Apart from developing new schemes, this will enable us to adopt and in some cases retrofit the new gear change cycle guidance, which includes the provision of well overdue physically separated cycleways and pavements. We're also going to spend 2.6 million on greenways, 2.5 million on Woking Borough cycleway network improvements, including a new cycleway along Barder Way, 2.2 million on public rights of way, and 600,000 on the A327 cycleway linking Eastern Relief Road to the Arborfield Release Road. All these will make it much easier to cycle to work, to cycle for enjoyment, and to make much more use of our facilities. In addition, we're completing our work on the park and ride schemes in Coppid Beach, Winnish Triangle and Thames Valley Park. We continue to bid for local government funding, such as the Active Travel Fund and the LEP, to invest in our road and cycleway network. We've got a very good record for bidding for and getting government grants and have received 5.5 million this year. Not only does this improve our transport, reduce our congestion and improve our carbon dioxide emissions, it also delivers local employment. A lot of the jobs that these road building and road maintenance projects generate are actually for local people and will help regenerate our economy after the COVID crisis. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jorgensen. The next hand in the air is Councillor Ullacorin Clark, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. To say that Children's Services has been on a journey is probably a huge understatement. However, I'm really pleased and honoured to be the Executive Member for Children's Services and to be able to update you on all the continued progress Children's Services has made over the past year. The Director of Children's Services and myself have worked extremely well together and have an open and honest working relationship where issues are brought to my attention early and we jointly work together to find solutions. The Director is forward-thinking and strategic, as well as being able to pick up issues and address them as and when they arise. She and her leadership teaches to improve outcomes for children across and in the borough, and for those children who we provide services to who are, because of need, placed outside the borough. Children's social care and early help is now much stronger in terms of quality delivery, and we have a more enriched offer to support families and protect the most vulnerable children. The Corporate Parenting Board has been reviewed, and early signs of an improved model being rolled out is beginning to prove beneficial to the children and young people for whom we have corporate parenting responsibility. And although there is still more to do, I am confident we will build on the progress already made. However, our improvement journey is far from over. We still have lots to do, which includes strengthening services for children with special educational needs and disabilities, shortened SEND. These improvements are both at local level within the SEND service and at the strategic and partnership level. Over the next year, we have some high-profile strategies to deliver against, including a new SEND strategy. This will involve the whole partnership coming together and holding each other to account for the delivery of improved services. We have done a huge amount of work reviewing our sufficiency of provision for children with educational needs and SEND.
Yeah, Councillor Clark, could I ask you to come to a prompt?
Yes, we are reviewing our resource basis to ensure that the offer and provision meets the current and future needs of the children who need this support. We are opening a new purpose-built SEND school in September 2022, and we have a change of sponsor and provider, Chiltern Way, at what was previously the Northern House School. We are confident that now, when we have the right strategy in place for children's services and the right leadership, we will make the difference for children that I am sure you will agree should be our collective ambition. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. And the next, well, Lindsay Ferris, you've still got your hand up, but I will now move down to Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubay, please. I'm assuming Lindsay Ferris, yes, your hand's down now, is it? No, it's still in the air.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a tough year for many of our residents in Woking Borough. There have been a 27% increase in people needing council tax reduction payments. Over £370,000 has been paid out in COVID hardship payments, and there is now well over 2,000 students receiving free school meals, which is an increase of 18% over last year. Many of us have been furloughed and our incomes cut, including myself. Some have lost our jobs altogether. What is glaringly missing from this budget is a COVID recovery plan. I see a bigger divide between the haves and the have-nots in Wokingham. To quote Damien Barr, we may all be in the same storm, but we're clearly not in the same boat. Despite the additional government grants we have received, Wokingham Borough Council is still down £754,000 because of COVID. We have lost income on car parking fees, licensing, and our inability to rent football pitches or charge fees in our leisure centres. With this thought, the budget demonstrates a failure to get control of our borrowing. This borrowing is not COVID-related borrowing. Our capital programme of future projects is rising to over 445 million, most of which is being borrowed, fingers crossed ahead, of new housing, council tax contributions, and at a time when the housing market is looking very unsure. We do need to borrow to complete these projects, but no one is saying we shouldn't, but we also need to be careful not to overcommit at this time. It is intended that we borrow the money from various sources, including internal borrowing from the council itself, but it still has to be funded from somewhere. So this affects our capital financing requirement, essentially the amount of money the council needs to find in order to support the capital projects. On page 85 of the medium-term financial plan, at the end of 2024, it has an expected closing balance of 678 million, but that is the general fund only. So if you want to find the actual borrowing, you need to look at the table above to see that the gross external borrowing is expected to be 580 million at the end of 2024. Due to the convoluted way our finances are reported, you then also need to look at page 104 of the Treasury Management Report to find the internal borrowing of 166 million. The totals of borrowing is over £750 million, and I don't know how the average member of the public is supposed to find all of that in these reports. Perhaps they aren't. Then there is the example of Wokingham Town Centre regeneration, launched with great fanfare and the loss of irreplaceable parkland and trees, no affordable housing, but is expected to generate an income to fund other projects. It is at least finally covering its own repayments and maintenance costs. However, it has not yet paid a single penny to Wokingham Borough Council to cover any additional projects or services. We hoped for a budget that would help us all out of the current financial crisis. We knew that in the post-Brexit period it would be hard, and COVID has just eclipsed all of that. So, what's the plan then?
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd-Dubay. Before we go on to the next speaker, who will be Councillor Maria G, can I ask Pauline Jorgensen, Ulla Clark and Lindsay Ferris and Imogen all to put their hands down, please, because their hands are still up in the air.
Sorry, Malcolm, my hand's down on my...
My hand is down as well.
Okay, she's now. Yeah, that's fine. Right. Imogen, yours is still in the air.
Mine is definitely down. Thank you.
All right. Okay, it is now. Yeah. Thank you. Then Councillor G, you're next then, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start by thanking the finance team for producing the reports this evening and throughout the year and responding to numerous questions in committees, meetings and by emails.
It has been an exceptionally challenging year as the finance team has been supporting the Council's response to COVID-19. Now I'd like to turn to transparency in budget reporting by the Executive, highlighted in Audit Committee by the Executive Member for Finance and Housing. Here are just a few of the most excellent adventures in this quest for transparency that the Executive has approved this year. That troublesome total borrowing on the General Fund appears to have been removed from the borrowing graph on page 10 of the Mtfp. Never fear, it's still there, now transparently called the capital financing requirement. That's capital spends not already paid for, which sounds very much like total borrowing to me. Sources of funding for capital spend last year were shown as percentages, with borrowing as 53% of the capital spend. We can all transparently work out from the table on page 84 in the Mtfp that borrowing will be 78% of the 21-22 capital spend. The percentages have been omitted this year. Maybe they're a bit scary for those of a nervous disposition. Last year, you could see the internal borrowing on page 85 of the Mtfp. In the interests of transparency, the internal borrowing figure may now instead be found on page 104 of the Treasury Management Strategy and will be 166 million in 23-24. Add the internal borrowing to external borrowing of 580 million and you will get the total borrowing of around 750 million, that's $750 million, in 3 years' time. The Treasury Management Strategy also transparently contains measures of benefits to taxpayers not approved by Audit Committee. The graph on page 10 of the Mtfp contains a redefinition of asset values, and the ratio of finance charges to revenue has been redefined this year. I'm reminded of the allegory about the problems of redefining measures and targets. You take a bus leaving at 5 p.m, timetable to arrive at your destination at 7 p.m. After you alight, the bus company changes the timetable for the scheduled arrival time to 7:30 p.m. You arrive quite cross at 7:15 p.m, having missed your connection, and are even more outraged when the bus company claims the bus has arrived 15 minutes early. That is what we have here, with the ruling group moving targets and measures. No comparability, no consistency, ever more opaque, and I am outraged. The one change I welcome is in the Capital Vision report of the Capital Programme and Strategy. The ruling group has revealed unconsciously that they know there is no point in planning for 10 years and have reduced their vision for 5 years. To be honest, even that's 4 years too long for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor G. If you can put your hand down when you're finished. And we now move on to Councillor Clive Jones, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This council has a number of contracts with outside bodies and businesses to provide many of our services. Lindsay pointed out earlier this evening there's a possible shortfall in one of our contracts that could cost the council as much as 1.7 million. There are others that need to be looked at very carefully. The waste contract with RE3 is one. It is extremely complicated. It's not at all transparent. There has been a suggestion from the council leader that we might be paying too much for it. Maybe he's been too busy with the Standards Committee, Constitutional Review Working Group, or putting his foot in it somewhere else to have done anything about this yet.
Budget, please, guys, budget.
But I hope that it's being looked at. Serious questions need to be asked. Have Wokingham Council taxpayers been paying too much for that contract? If we have, how much has it cost us? It could be running into millions of pounds. If the residents of Wokingham put the Liberal Democrats in control of the council on the 6th of May, one of our first actions will be to review contracts and the council's finances. Who knows what we will find? We all want more trees to be planted in the borough. Liberal Democrats, if we are running the council, would look to plant 300,000 trees, which is in line with the DEFRA target of having 17 to 19% of tree cover in the borough. We should be able to do this by 2032. Of course, we also realise that improving the environment is not just about the amount of tree cover, although that is important. It is also about creating grasslands and allowing nature to recover to improve biodiversity in our communities. I have put forward the idea of planting a COVID-19 memorial wood in the borough. This will give those who have lost friends and family to this horrible virus an opportunity to remember them in lovely surroundings. I look forward to work beginning on this project in the near future once the pandemic has ended, and welcome support that this idea has received from across the borough. The council has been passporting cash from the government to local businesses. This has been a lifeline for many of them, but more still needs to be done, especially for those who have recently started their business and the self-employed in the borough. As a council, we need to understand what our local business needs are so that we can try to help them to rebuild after COVID-19. I'm pleased that the council is engaging much more with local businesses now. We will ensure that this dialogue is continued with businesses if the residents put the Liberal Democrats in control of the council after the 6th of May. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Next is
Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'd like to put a point of order on this. This is not a political meeting. This is a meeting about the finances and not a political meeting.
indeed valid comment. If people will note that in subsequent comments. We move now on to Councillor Prue-Bray, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am surprised at that last comment because I think various people of a different political party may have been political this evening. I would like to start by thanking the staff in Children's Services who have all gone the extra mile during the pandemic, and it isn't over yet. The effects on children, on their mental health and their educational attainment will last for years, if not decades, and we are nowhere near understanding the full consequences, including the full financial consequences for Children's Services. It's very likely that the council will have to spend more in some areas and that there will be delays in realising planned savings. That is about as far as it is safe to go. Next year's revenue budget for Children's Services cannot really be anything other than a best guess. But one thing does stand out: the money for schools that's ring-fenced for special educational needs and disabilities. 2 years ago, the overspend in that high needs block was 1.5 million. At the end of this financial year, it will double, and next year it is predicted to double again to over 6 million. SEND funding requires national reform. Meanwhile, there is an urgent need to reduce local dependency on expensive independent schools. The Liberal Democrats have been calling for an extra state special school for years, and I am glad that you have caught up with us and it is happening. And now I'm going to move to the finances of the Gorse Ride regeneration. 2 years ago, the medium-term financial plan referred explicitly to the 80 million Gorse Ride regeneration project. That overall figure vanished last year, and now this year's plan says the council is only part funding it. The planned spend, laid out in successive capital programmes, has changed, but there's no way to find out how much has actually been spent. It isn't identifiable in the statement of accounts, and in 2020, the capital monitoring reports tell you more about gorse bushes, and Dartford warblers and nest in them, in case you're wondering, than about Gorse Ride. There is nothing in the capital vision to help. It has stopped listing individual projects and now only covers 5 years instead of 10. So in summary, this is public money being spent on council-owned development, but from what has been published, no one can see the overall cost of the Gorse Ride project, how much has been spent on it so far, how much of it the council is funding, where the rest of the funding is coming from, how long it's planned to take, or what's changed since it started. Not exactly open and transparent, and you really need to do better.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. We now move on to the next one. and I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sure. Sarah Kerr or Carr? Whichever one. I always get it wrong. Who was it, Sarah Kerr? Carr.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
It's your turn to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Do not mistake activity for achievement. To tackle the climate emergency, we have to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, for which we have two alternatives. We can do less of the activities that emit, and we can reduce the emissions of the activity that remains. There is very little in this budget that actually addresses these two fundamental things. Air quality monitors and biodiversity are not climate emergency initiatives and do not belong in this section. Managing congestion is likely to have the opposite effect by encouraging more driving. Then there are several lines that merely keep the lights on and are not new money for tackling the climate emergency, but move from other budget lines. They are food waste, recycling, public rights of way and byways. Looking at initiatives that reduce consumption, there is alternate transport, mostly active travel, which also has many other benefits for our community. This section includes public rights of way and byways money, plus the greenways, which are leisure routes and have minimal impact on reducing the number of car journeys taken. Discounting these leaves just shy of £9 million over 3 years, around half of the £17 million committed to managing congestion. Given £130 million is being spent on new roads, this is pitiful. We know we need to create safe spaces for pedestrians and cyclists. A painted line on a 40-mile-per-hour A road is not safe cycling provision. The Lib Dem motion passed last year that committed us to implementing a car club strategy. Where is it? Initiatives in the budget for making our energy usage greener are EV charging points, solar farms and other renewable energy infrastructure projects. Liberal Democrats support renewable energy generation, but we question why solar farms are in the climate emergency budget, given that it doesn't make a material difference on the borough's carbon emissions. This is actually an investment opportunity, and wonder if it should be offered to potential providers rather than investing our scarce capital and management time in becoming a power generator. Developers are also continuing to build new homes in this borough that are not compatible with the climate emergency, which will cost more to retrofit in future. The new borough design code and the local plan update will go a long way to tackling this, yet this Conservative administration is procrastinating. I'm disappointed that this administration has failed to really grasp how to tackle the climate emergency and persists in misrepresenting other investments as such. A Liberal Democrat administration would put in safe walking and cycling infrastructure we can be proud of. We would adopt a local plan based around 15-minute sustainable neighbourhoods, and we would directly engage and work with our communities to develop a comprehensive strategy of action. Please remember to not mistake activity for achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We now move on to Councillor Andy Croy, please. Are you there? Yes, you are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, I would like to extend my thanks to Graham and the other officers who've put so much work into this pack. Leaving aside some of the continued rebadging of existing spending as climate emergency spending, let's have a look at some of the detail. Under the heading of carbon dioxide reduction, we have £17 million allocated, as others have said, to improving traffic flow. And I'll tell you the best way to improve traffic flow, and that's to reduce the number of cars on our roads. And I'll let you know the best way to cut our carbon emissions. That is also to reduce the number of cars on our roads. It's amazing how these two ends and means overlap, isn't it? But £17 million is a lot of money. So let's look at the climate emergency plan passed by this council in July, and let's see what we get for our £17 million. The fact is, we don't get anything. £17 million in the strategy in front of us, but not a squeak in the actual plan. This £17 million is not in the climate emergency action plan, but it pops up in this budget in front of us. The climate plan does contain a reference to traffic lights in Twyford, but £17 million is a lot of money to spend on a few traffic lights and some CCTV cameras. So I think Pauline might have touched on what the £17 million was for, but there is no detail in this document in front of us that can justify us voting for £17 million under the heading of carbon dioxide emissions. The capital budget does highlight some Conservative priorities, though. Under the heading of regeneration of towns, we have a rather optimistic implication that more than one town will be regenerated. This strategy is for the regeneration of Wokingham town, singular. Woodley, not a penny. Woodley town gets fobbed off with some loose change from the highways budget to build a little brick wall around some trees. A brick wall around trees planned to coincide with the elections from last year. But let's be clear, regeneration is not just about improving the cash flow, as others in this meeting have suggested. It's about making our towns better places to live. So, regardless of the cash flow, where is the money for the regeneration of Woodley? We'll not be fobbed off with a wall around some trees while Wokingham gets the luxury treatment. Last March, I did write to the Property Investment Group regarding the possible purchase of the Good Companion pub and associated land, but I've not heard back. I appreciate the pandemic has taken priority over other business, but I would like to remind John Horsell and John Kaiser of my email of the 9th of March. We'll be voting against much of what's in front of us. The Conservatives have delivered us a double whammy. We've seen the borough undermined for 10 years in pursuit of ideological worship of austerity. And we know that austerity is a problem because every meeting we hear the Conservatives tell us about their party's pain inflicted on our borough via underfunding, and that is a Conservative political choice. Secondly, we've been let down by the current government. This year, the government should have stepped in to ensure that there are no council tax increases. As part of a better future where local authorities are properly funded, we should have seen increased support from the Conservatives and Sunak. If he's got money to subsidise eating out, he can find the money to help council taxpayers. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've finished now.
Thank you very much. Okay. So next one on the list here is Councillor Rachel Burgess, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, on the Treasury management strategy, I take issue with the way these reports continually change the way the cost of borrowing is presented, arguably in order to present the numbers in the best possible light. And this inconsistency can be seen within this very agenda pack itself. So the Treasury management mid-year report that we'll come on to later, which was reviewed at Audit Committee, calculated the net cost of borrowing for this current year to be £7.52 per household. This calculation basically takes the gross cost of borrowing, which is interest, etc., and then nets out contributions to funding those costs from things like Treasury investments in order to reduce the net cost down to £7.52 per household. This was raised at Audit Committee at the time, as it was a change from the previous presentation. Then when redoing these figures for the 21-22 as part of this Treasury management strategy, perhaps the Conservatives did not like the fact that the equivalent cost of borrowing figure for next year rises quite significantly, almost 4 times the cost of this year, in fact. Now, far be it from me to suggest that this is the reason why the calculation of the final number here has changed yet again, and this time to a net credit for taxpayers of £13.64 per household. If you compare these two calculations side by side, the calculation in the strategy adds back additional income from the town centre, regeneration and commercial investments, so that magically the final cost of borrowing is not a cost at all, but it's income. If this calculation was actually done on a like-for-like basis between this year and next year, it would show a rise to the net cost to £28.65 per household next year, from £7.52 this year. Put simply, it depends what figures you pick. It's equally accurate to say that the gross cost of borrowing without anything netted off for next year is £113 per household. Now, my overall point here is that the Conservatives cannot respond to political challenge on borrowing levels by changing these reports every time until they get a suitable figure to come out at the end. According to CIPFA, which is the accounting body for local authorities, we need a Treasury management strategy to ensure affordability, prudence and sustainability. It does not say that we pick and choose different figures every time we do a report to display the best possible presentation of our numbers. And then moving on to the Mtfp revenue submission, the UK economy, as we've heard, is suffering its worst recession for hundreds of years, and actually one of the worst among the developed economies. And the impact on our residents should not be underestimated. Pay has been frozen, jobs have been lost, incomes are precarious, and universal credit is to be cut. Families are worried about how they will make ends meet, and the challenges faced by many are huge. And yet, in the middle of all this, here is a proposal to slap an extra 5% on residents' council tax bills when the rate of inflation is under 1% and has been for some time. Instead of helping to protect family incomes, we're asking our residents to pay more. We're asking them to pay the price. But if there were adequate, robust support for councils from central government, we simply wouldn't be in this position, asking residents to pay more in a period of massive economic turmoil. Creating additional financial burdens for hard-hit residents using such a regressive tax as council tax cannot be the way forward in funding our vital services. It's time that the Conservative government backed local authorities and removed the need for this callous and badly timed financial hit on our council taxpayers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. And
Mr. Mayor, Standing Order 4212M. Can I propose for after 10 o'clock? I'd like to propose an extension of the meeting for an additional half hour. We still have at least half
I will
an hour.
second your proposal, Prue, with pleasure.
Okay, so it is proposed by Prue Brain, seconded by whom? Who is
I believe
seconding
that
it?
might have been Chris Bowering.
It was.
Yes.
It was Bowering, yes.
Okay, so we need to put that to the vote, don't we? So back to the dead for all hands in. The hands don't seem to be going up and down properly at the moment, and I understand there may be other people have been experiencing it as well. So if those three people, Stephen Conway, Guy Grandison and Chris Bowering, were at the moment to try and take their hands down to see if we can get them all clear. And then we're going to take a vote on extending it from a standing start, because I've got hands stuck in the air from before. Are you able to take them down?
My hand's down, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
I see Pauline Hellier-Simmons and Charles Margaret.
Right, and I see Stephen Conway and Guy Grandison hands in the air.
My hand is taken down, Chair.
Could I be helpful, Mr. Mayor? If the
Certainly.
Liberals are asking for an extra half hour and the Tories are agreeing to an extra half hour, you really don't need to do all of this.
Okay, yes, it does seem to be the case. We've got a lot to get through tonight, so I'm happy to extend the meeting then to 11 o'clock instead of 10:30 without having to go through the vote. If that's
Mr. Mayor, that is contrary to the Constitution, I would suggest.
So would I. We can do a quick vote. Two hands being left up is hardly going to make any difference, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, in that case, all those who are in favour of extending the time from 10:30 till 11 and in favour, can you try and put your hands up signal, if you can, please. Otherwise, you have to go through and make it almost like a recorded vote, which is going to take a lifetime.
Looks like there's only two hands up at the moment, me and Sarah Kerr.
There are many hands up.
There's loads up.
I can see loads of
Yeah.
hands.
Well, there is a problem.
47 hands up at my
Yeah,
count.
come on, Malcolm, that's enough.
Right. Well, yes, there's not a single one showing on my screen at all, but I'm perfectly happy to accept that everybody seems correct. And I hope that satisfies the requirement of the Constitution that by vocal, invisible hands, agreements and common agreement, common accord, we are going to extend the meeting till 11 o'clock tonight. Okay, thank you for that. We've still got we've got the proposal second officially there, and the rest is in agreement. So we go back to the discussion we had. There was one person left to speak, which in fact I think was Councillor Stephen Conway.
Malcolm,
And me, Mr. Mayor.
And me, Malcolm. My hand's been up for about half an hour.
And me,
who's
Malcolm,
that, sorry?
Gregor Murray.
That's Charles
There were at
Margaret.
least 4 people left to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Oh right, okay. Well, I can't see. I can only see 2. Right. So who's first now on this? Who's the first one who just spoke?
I wanted to speak, Mr. Mayor. It's Charles Margaret.
Okay. Would you like to make a start then? And we'll try and sort out which order these are appearing. So, Councillor Margaret, would you like to speak, please?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I shall be brief. I just wanted to pick up a couple of points that have been made in other speeches. There was some mention by a couple of the Lib Dems of the lack of a COVID support plan. I wanted to briefly remind people what we've done to support the residents through COVID. We could start with the working and voluntary response set up by the council, organising the voluntary sector. This led to one front door. The
Sorry,
working
Charles, it was recovery, not report.
Sorry, are you speaking against the budget? Not against, on behalf of the budget. Your item is this, Councillor Margus? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Continue for the time being, as long as it's related to budget.
Public appeal for PPE, purchasing our own COVID tests, meetings with GPs, and recently becoming one of the first councils in Berkshire to set up lateral flow testing. You know, as well as obviously the things that Councillor Ferris mentioned. In his speech, Councillor Ferris also emphasised the wish to see mental health improvements across the borough. I'd like to draw his attention to a couple of things already announced, basically showing what we're doing on this. The Wokingham Recovery College and the new Mind Service, which starts next year, which is going to support 1,200 residents across the borough. We're already taking steps, as Councillor Kerr said, action, not hot words. Next year, in terms of what we're doing, the funding for the dementia care home mentioned by my colleague Councillor Halsall. And finally, which relates very much to the budget, the Empower Demand Management Programme, which has been in work for 18 months now. Adult services basically has always faced the pressure of ongoing costs due to the ageing population and the increasing need of the population, which basically raises our costs by 4% a year if we do nothing more. This revolutionary programme will not only improve services by basically bringing forward action and response, it will also save money. And it will see us reduce that 4% from 2% a year and raise our performance into the top 10% of councils across the UK on all recognised measures. And that's what you get from a Conservative borough council: responsible financial management, improving services, and also using money efficiently. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Here, Charles, here.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Margus. I've got 2, 3. I'm good here. Could Gregor Murray go next, please? And after that, Shirley Boyce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please don't mistake words and rhetoric for action. This budget supports the only actual climate emergency action plan that has been proposed so far from any of the political parties in this council. Also, please don't mistake convoluted and rambling sentences with facts. We as a council are working towards net carbon zero, not actual zero emissions. Spending 32.5 million on solar farms and renewable energy projects generates green energy that reduces the carbon energy that increases the carbon energy in the network. We net that against our carbon footprint. That's how net carbon zero works. I am reminded of the words of Teddy Roosevelt: complaining about anything without actually proposing a solution is just whining.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. And the next person in the queue is Shirley Boyce, please.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, my hand was not up.
Well, it appears on my screen. It's up in the air.
Oh, well, it's very
okay,
strange.
But thank you.
Hands are not up or appearing on your screen, but no, my hand wasn't up.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I think it's Pauline Hellier-Simmons' hand that was up.
Well, it's almost random. Yeah, Pauline Hellier-Simmons.
And you did call Stephen
Davis here after that, then.
Mr. Mayor, am I still on your list? Stephen Conway, am I still on your list? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I hope so.
Here as well now.
I had the tantalising belief I was going to be speaking about half an hour ago.
Yes, it's a game of on and off at the moment, and I'm not quite sure who's put the hand up and who hasn't. Well, would you like to speak next, then, and then Pauline Hellier-Simmons after, please? Okay, is that okay?
Okay, you're inviting me to speak now.
Yes,
how wonderful! Thank you very much.
And then Pauline Hellier-Simmons after you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to begin, if I may, with 2 small points of correction. Emma told us that we should not be making political speeches. This wasn't a political occasion, but I couldn't help but notice all of her Conservative colleagues have gone out of their way to be party political about everything they've said. I also think Charles rather mixed up the point that Lindsay was making earlier. We were talking about what should happen in the future, not about what the council has already been doing. I should like to echo Lindsay's thanks to council officers for their exceptional efforts in this most challenging of years, and to his praise of the voluntary sector for the vital role it's played. The budget has some features that we Liberal Democrats welcome, notably the commitment to adult social care and special educational needs and disabilities, both areas where we have been pressing for the Council to take action. But there are things that we would have done differently, as my colleagues have explained. I want to highlight just two examples, one presentational, the other strategic. First, the presentational point. Money has been moved around, creating the illusion that it's new when it's repackaged. This is clearly the case with some of the items of spending related to the climate emergency, where I have to say the idea of recycling has been taken so seriously that it's been extended to include the Council's financial contributions. In terms of strategy, we wanted to see a clear plan for recovery in the borough after COVID. Some excellent work has been done by council officers over the last year to support local businesses and residents. That needs now to be developed into a coherent overall strategy for recovery that includes the arts and culture as well as business. There is an opportunity for the council to build back better with the health, happiness and fulfilment of all members of the community as its priority. We should seize that opportunity. Mr. Mayor, the opposition stands ready, as we did last year before the council local elections, to implement our vision for an inclusive, caring and prosperous community in which the council listens and learns and plays a full part in facilitating improvement and recovery for all. We look forward to the borough elections on the 6th of May, which for the first time in many years give our residents the chance to opt for real change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conway. The next person, please, that I vote is PHS, please, Pauline Hellier-Simons. We have a number of people who want to speak, whatever order they appear in, and time is running quickly. So if you can try and keep it fairly concise, that would be quite good, and we'll be able to get through some people. So Pauline Hellier-Simons, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should like to make a small point of correction as well. The new SEND school emerged from discussions that I had with the Director of Children's Services when I was the Executive Member for Children's Services, when we were discussing the budget as well as the SEND children's own needs. And we started the idea of a new SEND school. And it's just one more example, regrettably, of the Liberal Democrats claiming credit for something where they were not in the least bit involved, but was a Conservative initiative. At that time, there wasn't a Liberal Democrat to be seen in any of those discussions.
Factually incorrect.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hellier-Simons. And the next person is David Hare, and can that be followed, please, by Guy Grandison? David Hare, please.
I haven't got my hand up at all.
Ah, yours is one of the hands up. Okay, in that case, can you go to Guy Grandison, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My hand is now down. There, speaking somewhat professionally here, there are some issues going on globally at the moment, which is causing some errors with hands. I wasn't planning to speak this evening. However, there have been some comments this evening from the opposition, conflictions about debt and deficit. But the one that's really annoyed me is that there's been all this praise of the officers, which they well deserved. And then there has been criticism of the officers on top of that. Accusations of hidden objects, lack of open and transparency. And I also felt that was a direct attack on the Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which I chair. We have been looking at this budget in very difficult circumstances for the latter part of the last 6.5 to 7 months. We have been going through it with as fine a tooth comb as we could possibly manage. within the circumstances of doing it all virtually. And the officers and executive members and committee members all played a complete blinder. They have done an excellent job in doing this. This budget should be commended and supported because in spite of everything that has been going on, the officers and the executive leadership and this council as a whole have managed to keep the ship steady in spite of all the water that has been thrown at it and is leaking because of the COVID-19 crisis. That is what the core benefit of this budget is and the work that has gone behind it. Officers should be commended. The executive should be commended for the level of detail that this budget has gone and the overview of this budget and the scrutiny is it going throughout the last 6 months. And going forward, the Community and Corporate Committee will continue to do it. That is what should be said this evening. This budget, there are things in it I disagree with. There are things that I agree with. There are ideological issues that all of us have. But the idea and the first thing that we should be doing is caring for our residents. That is what this budget does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There you go. Rochelle Shepherd-Bay next, followed immediately by Chris Bowring, please. So Rochelle and then Chris Bowring after her.
My hand isn't up, Mayor. Sorry.
Right. Okay, Councillor Chris Bowring then, please. Thank you for that.
Jim Freewood's hand is up.
Well, you go after Bowring.
Mr. Mayor, my hand hasn't been up for about half an hour now.
But yes, it's random what is appearing on my screen, really. I just have to pick from the name I have. So
the two hands up are Jim and Jenny Chan.
And my screen's different, and I think other people are telling me it's different. So who are you saying the two hands are up that you can see?
No, it's only Jim.
Only Jim for me as well, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so Chris Bowring then, please.
And Jim's hand gone down now.
I was going to say, Councillor Bowring, followed by Jim Frewen afterwards, please.
Mr. Mayor, I've just explained to you that my hand wasn't up. I do not wish to...
Oh, I didn't hear that bit. Sorry. Okay, fine. So go to Jim Frewen then. And all is at the end of it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There can be no doubt in any of our minds that there's been some excellent work done across the last year. There can also be no doubt that there are things that, with hindsight, we could and should have done better. If, as a council, we put that effort or the amount of effort that's gone in tonight for political party point scoring into looking after our residents, this would be a much better council all the way through. I agree with what Guy has said. We need to focus not on election, but on our residents. And to be honest with you, any residents watching this tonight will wonder where our focus is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, are there any others now who think they've got their hand up or are intended to speak? Or can we move on now then to the next step?
I'd like to speak, please.
Who's that?
To Councillor Doran.
Councillor Doran, yes. Would you like to speak now then? And then afterwards, we'll go to ask Councillor Halsall. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to propose a small amendment, basically. The line that in the budget that Councillor Croy discussed, the £17 million, which is, I believe, incorrectly under carbon reductions, should be moved into the road transport area. Councillor Croy has the amendment and it can be displayed if we need to see that, and we'll second it.
Well, perhaps he'd like to speak after you if he's going to.
Yeah, I just want to propose it first, and obviously he can second it in a moment, and you can have a look at it to make sure that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Basically, as you can see, it's simply we're not arguing with anything that's there in terms of the money spent or the reasons it's been spent, but the lines it's in, because basically it does not belong under climate emergency spending. Improved management of the road network can enable a smoother flow of traffic and therefore reduce congestion and emissions. But that's only true if the volume of road traffic remains constant. The problem is that a reduction in that congestion will generate more traffic. The carbon impact of this induced traffic is ongoing and will increase over time. Clearly, the spending on road building has been removed from the climate emergency budget line, as it was no longer possible to pretend that so much road building and subsequent massive amounts of induced traffic would reduce emissions. It will raise them. While this budget line faces the same criticism. I'm going to be very quick, but I note that during the debate tonight, the £17 million was announced by the Executive Member for Transport, not the Executive Member for Climate Emergency. And during his speech, the Executive Member for Climate Emergency didn't mention it either. So clearly, this 17 million does reside in roads and transport and not climate emergency.
Explanation, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
The reason why I covered that piece of the budget, it was originally there were only going to be 2 Conservative members, apart from the Executive Member for Finance and the leader speaking. So Gregor wasn't intending to speak, as were many other Conservative members not intending to speak, which is why I covered both some of the climate change lines and the highways and transport lines in my speech.
Okay. Would that satisfy you, Councillor Doran, in terms of why those numbers are split? So you don't.
That's just, I think Pauline's just explaining why she spoke about it. It doesn't change the fact that it's not a climate emergency factoid. It should be in the budget for road transport. I'm still proposing my amendment. The fact is, can we get a real life reduction in emissions by spending this money? I don't know, but neither does this council. It wasn't in the Climate Emergency Action Plan. It hasn't been worked out. It may reduce emissions. It may do exactly the opposite. The point is it hasn't been worked out, and it should stay in the road transport budget until such time as it's been worked out. So that's my proposal.
Right, thank you. And your seconder is that Councillor Croy?
Councillor Croy, yeah.
Councillor Croy. Right, so Carl Doran, you've proposed and spoken. Councillor Croy, seconder, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I will speak now, thank you, Mr. Mayor, because it's very, very quick. I just want, Carl has explained it very, very well. I mean, I just want to refocus members' minds on the Climate Emergency Action Plan. The Climate Emergency Action Plan does not include this item. We cannot be taken seriously in terms of either the Climate Emergency Action Plan or this capital budget, where the 2 plans do not add up. They do not say the same thing. This line was not in the Climate Emergency Action Plan. It does not belong in this part of the strategy. I'll leave it at that because I appreciate time is short. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So Carl Doran's proposed, Andy Croy's seconded. You've spoken now. Can I ask Councillor Halsall if you will accept the amendments that was being proposed, that was displayed?
No.
No. Okay. So that means then, bear with me. I need to read my notes here. I'll be back in a moment. We'll debate the thing. And so does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment at this point? I think you might need to say your name because I'm not sure if the hands are full. Whom, sorry?
Councillor Kerr would like to, please.
Councillor Cowan would like to speak.
Okay, Councillor Carr, would you like to speak at the moment then?
Well, you almost got it right, Councillor Kerr, not Carr.
Yeah, I do. I'll get it wrong every time.
Yeah, just
not intentional, I have to say.
No worries. Just to say, we fully support this amendment. I have already made reference to this in my speech. Measures to manage congestion actually will have the opposite effect of reducing carbon emissions. They will actually make it easier for people to use their cars and thus attracting more cars onto the transport network. And then we'll be back to more congestion, more cars, people more reliant on those cars. So it's absolutely right what Labour is saying, and Lib Dems are in complete support of this. It shouldn't not be in the climate emergency line of the budget, and it doesn't actually tackle the carbon emissions. So we will be supporting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bear in mind, I can't see any hands in. Who else would like to speak on this?
Councillor Murray, I would.
Councillor Murray, would you like to speak quickly? Because I think you're going to have to go to the vote pretty rapidly. So, Councillor Murray.
Councillor Cowan was ahead of me in the list, Malcolm, so he should speak
okay,
first.
Councillor Cowan, speak then first.
I'll be very brief. I will support the amendment, and I'll say no more.
Okay, thank you. So, is that because we're running out of time?
Malcolm, just very quickly, I can't actually agree with the sentiments that reducing congestion is going to put more people onto the road. I mean, yes, it might result in more car journeys, but it will also result in less idling time. It will result in less stationary time at traffic jams. So traffic will be able to move through our community significantly easier, not necessarily faster, but easier. Journey time should be lower, and therefore emissions subsequently should also be lower. So I just don't understand or actually buy or accept the argument that is being made here about it's just going to incentivize people to drive. I just don't believe the rationale of that.
Has something happened?
I'll be with you in a moment. Just checking the paper on the document. Back in a moment.
Mr.
I think is the proposer. He has the right to reply. Now, just looking through several pages of notes to confirm that. So, Councillor Halsall.
I think I'm the proposer.
No.
The proposer.
Alderan's proposer, Mayor.
No,
of
the proposer of the original motion.
Yeah, but this is an amendment.
Yes. So we've debated the amendment.
Yes, we then have to decide whether we have a vote on the amendment. And I think there's a suggestion that we have a recorded vote on this issue.
I have my list here for the flow of an amendment. All right, I have a chart. I'm working my way through.
We are still requesting a recorded vote, Mayor.
Wait, yeah, that's a separate issue. The question is,
put our hands up for recorded vote, please.
My diagram, Councillor Halsall, as the proposer of the original motion, should have the right to reply because he didn't accept the amendment, so he debated, and now the proposer of the original has a right to speak.
I actually think that's wrong.
Well, that's on my chart.
Can we have a ruling on that from someone, please? Because that doesn't make sense to me. What's the amendment dealt with? He does.
Democratic Services should be able to give us a ruling.
Yeah, just look at my notes here. Yes, it would normally be Councillor Croy because he seconded it, but he decided he would speak immediately, you might recall. I asked him if you want to speak now or speak later, and he said, I'll speak now because I don't need to say much. So he had spoken already, and therefore, if he hadn't spoken, he would have spoken next, and then Councillor Halsall would have the final roundup. But as Councillor Croy has already taken his opportunity to speak, we now come to Councillor Halsall as the proposer of the original motion. That's so complicated, but it follows the chart.
Have we rejected the amendment then? Or am I speaking rejection of the amendment, Mr. Mayor?
Don't we have to vote on the amendment?
I don't really want to talk to anybody else. I want to talk to the mayor.
That's the right question.
Right, I'm nearly there. Basically, council has the right to reply on the amendment, not on the entire thing, on the amendment.
Okay, very simply, we don't accept the logic of what is being put forward, so we're going to vote against it. We will stick to the original budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm talking, you hear me?
Mr. Mayor,
right.
you have to vote now.
We now have to vote on the amendment. Okay, can you hear me? I can't hear any voices.
Yes, I hear you.
We're going to vote on the amendment. So I don't know how to do this with a show of hands.
Can we just confirm
point
this?
of order, Mr. Mayor. Point of order, Mr. Mayor. The mover of the amendment has the right of reply at the end of the debate on the amendment. I understand.
No, he does not.
Doesn't. According to my
Sure.
chart, when I asked you if you wanted to speak now or speak later, you decided to speak immediately.
4213(6)(c), the mover of the amendment has no right to reply to the debate on his or her amendment.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, apologies.
Yep, so I'm right. Okay, good. So we now go to the vote on the amendment.
We requested a recorded vote, Mayor.
Okay.
We had 5 people who stood up and said that already.
Yes, I can't see any of them, but I'm quite happy to accept that. Yes, so we will go to a recorded vote. So I suspect the Susan Parsonage may do this, or are we going to do it? Yes, Susan Parsonage, I think, like she usually does. Recorded vote. Sorry, I'm just waiting for this. There's some communication difficulties, so the Democratic Services and Hunter will conduct it, and we go to the vote on whether or not to accept the amendment to Appendix B, Recommendation 21.
Keith Baker.
Abstain.
Parry Bath.
Against.
Rachel Bishop Firth.
For.
Laura Blumenthal.
Against.
Chris Bowring.
Against.
Shirley Boyt.
For.
Prue Bray.
For.
Rachel Burgess.
For.
Jenny Cheng.
Against.
Ulla Karen Clark.
Against.
Stephen Conway.
For.
Gary Cowan.
For.
Andy Croy.
For.
Richard Delinsky.
Against.
Carl Doran.
For.
Lindsay Ferris.
For.
Michael Firmager.
Against.
Paul Fishwick.
For.
Jim Fruin.
For.
Maria G.
For.
Guy Granderson.
Against.
Charlotte Hatham Taylor.
Against.
John Halsall. John Halsall? You're on mute, John.
Against.
David Hare.
For.
Pauline Hellier-Simons.
Against.
Emma Hobbs.
Against.
Graham Howe.
Against.
Clive Jones.
For.
Pauline Jorgensen.
Against.
John Kaiser.
Against.
Sarah Kerr.
For.
Diane King.
Against.
Abdul Loys.
Against.
Tahir Mahir.
For.
Charles Margetts.
Against.
Adrian Mather.
For.
Ken Mile.
Against.
Andrew McCuber.
For.
Stuart Munro.
Against.
Gregor Murray.
Against.
Barry Patman.
Against.
Malcolm Richards. Angus Ross.
Against.
Daniel Sargent.
Against.
Imogen Shepherd-Dubé.
For.
Rochelle Shepherd-Dubé.
For.
Caroline Smith.
For.
Chris Smith. I believe Chris Smith isn't in the meeting. Wayne Smith.
Against.
Bill Soane.
Against.
Alison Swaddle.
Against.
And Simon Weeks.
Against.
I can confirm that the amendments are not agreed.
Can Wayne Smith go on mute, please?
I'm not on mute. We now, because that's fallen, we now return to the debate on the main thing, and therefore I'd like to ask if anyone, hold on a moment.
Doesn't somebody have the right of reply, like John Halsall or John Kaiser?
I'm just seeking some advice on that point right now.
We've had 90 minutes on this item, Mr. Mayor. We need to go to the votes, please.
More than 90.
My understanding is that the proposer gets the right to reply before the vote.
Prue is the expert
that
on
is
the
right.
Constitution.
That is
We've
quite
just
right.
had the vote.
We've voted on the amendment. We now need to have a right of reply to the substantive vote and vote on that.
Basically, we were looking at the time thing because we're at the limit. John Halsall will have the final right of reply. Hopefully, he's brief, and then we will go to the vote. We'll go through the 4 votes then. So, John Halsall, if you'd like to.
Very, very quickly, I commend this budget to our the council. Just a few points which were picked up on. Clive, we have no other purpose than to serve our residents. I know that the Lib Dems have just discovered this, but we work as that as a mantra. Our budget is focused on recovery, and all our services will be restored on the end of lockdown. Repeating statements doesn't make them true. And it's sad that my friend Lindsay feels the need to stoop to language which is really not worthy of him or the council. Calling everything a breach does not make it a breach. His friend Donald's approach is to do just that. Arrogant and deceitful is not warranted, but I'm happy to address ignorant and deceitful. Publishing borrowing levels which are not true is deceitful. The Lib Dems are truly frightening in their financial illiteracy. The real figures are published by the council. All of this is brought to overview and scrutiny, which you sit on, and you've been going through that for the last 7 months. Extracted tooth by tooth is incredible. What are you guys doing in overview and scrutiny? We give you all the information, but you don't wish to use it. You prefer to make it up. Currently, our net borrowings are between 100 and 150 million, and they'll peak about 250, 300 million. Our capital investment of a staggering 445 has only 11 million, which is falling on our taxpayers, which says it all. But what of the capital budget will you cut? Most importantly, I would like to address the recovery and the budget strategy. The best aid to recovery is for the Borough Council to get all its services up and running, and act as a momentum for the local economy. Focus on need and job creation. The need may be personal or institutional. As my friend John Kaiser keeps on saying, a council which is bust is no good to anybody. So I think I'll leave it there. Our budget is based upon getting everything up and running and focusing on where we need to address need and addressing recovery. I commend this budget to the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, can we have a recorded vote for All right. If there is the support.
Nothing. The desk. Clapping.
John Kaiser, you're on. You're not on mute.
There was a request from Gary Cowan about a recorded vote.
That's correct. Yeah, Gary Cowan. There was a request.
So we're going to do the housing revenue.
A recorded vote if there is the right support from other members.
Yes, and I understand that there are enough. It's so much easier in the chamber. You can see everybody standing up. But we're now going to go to a recorded vote then for the housing revenue accounts budget. How many people are there? I was told there's 5 or 6 standing up. How many? Can you tell me who they are?
Gary Cowan is supporting a recorded vote on each element of the budget.
Yes, but who else? We're supposed to. Normally we can see who's sitting up and standing up in the chamber. I can't see anything on here. I need to know how many people they are and who they are.
There are several hands going up. 4 or 5 hands now.
I can see Lindsay, Rochelle, Clive Jones, Imogen Shepherd-Debay,
time wasters, Mr. Mayor, who've held up this meeting in an absolutely disgraceful way. The opposition.
Okay, okay, yes, but now right now you're talking and stopping the recorded vote.
Oh dear. We have 6 hands, okay?
Mr. Mayor, I find it incredible that
we made contact
are able to complain about the running of the council meetings and are the source of the greatest disruption of council meetings.
Can the mayor please step in and stop this?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We are going to the vote now. We are going to do a recorded vote. We've established contact with Susan Parsonage, the CEO, and so we are going to do a recorded vote for housing revenue accounts budget, starting now.
Right, I'll read out the names. It's for, against, or abstention, please. So, Keith Baker.
Abstention.
Harry Bath.
For.
Rachel Bishop-Furr.
For.
Laura Blumenthal.
For.
Chris Bowring.
For.
Shirley Boyd.
For.
Prue Bray. For. Rachel Burgess.
For.
Jenny Cheng. Jenny Cheng.
Oh, sorry, 4.
Ulla Corinne Clark.
4.
Stephen Conway.
4.
Gary Cowan.
4.
Andy Croy.
4.
Richard Delinsky.
4.
Carl Duran.
4.
Lindsay Ferris.
4.
Michael Firmager.
4.
Paul Fishwick.
4.
Jim Fruin.
Against.
Maria G.
4.
Guy Granderson.
4.
Charlotte Haytham Taylor.
4.
John Holsall.
4.
David Hare.
4.
Pauline Hellier-Simons.
4.
Emma Hobbs.
4.
Graham Howe.
4.
Clive Jones.
4.
Pauline Jorgensen. Pauline Jorgensen.
4.
John Kaiser.
4.
Sarah Kerr.
4.
Diane King.
4.
Abdul Loys.
4.
Abdul.
4.
Tahir Maher.
4.
Charles Magetz.
4.
Adrian Mather.
4.
Ken Mile.
4.
Andrew Mickleborough.
4.
Stuart Munro.
4.
Gregor Murray.
4.
Barry Patman.
4.
Malcolm Richards.
As Mayor I abstain.
Angus Ross.
4.
Daniel Sargent.
4.
Imogen Shepherd-Debay.
4.
Rochelle Shepherd-Debay.
4.
Caroline Smith.
4.
Chris Smith. Chris Smith. Wayne
I don't
Smith.
think he's here.
No.
4.
Wayne Smith.
4.
Bill Stone.
4.
Alison Swaddle.
4.
Simon Weeks.
4.
Thank you.
Right, I can confirm the recommendations are agreed for the housing revenue. Okay, we now will go on to voting on the next item, which is the capital programme and strategy. And I imagine that we're not having a recorded vote on this, so we're going straight through.
I would like a recorded vote on all items, please, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, what a waste.
Okay.
What's the matter with you, Gary?
Yeah.
It is 10:45. We have to finish at 11, and there is another item. We've got a full vote to do on this, and I was then going to suggest that because the election is coming up in May and there are changes, but we just won't get through those things. But okay, so
we have a constitution. We should be abiding by the constitution.
Indeed. Yes, I'm not breaking it. I was going to ask for your approval to change one of the sequences of the later thing. But okay, we'll do the capital programme and strategy recorded vote. So back to Chief Executive, please.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Are there 6 people who want a recorded vote? Because the Labour group doesn't want a recorded vote on every item. You don't need it.
Well said, Andy.
It's only time waster, Gary.
Yes.
There were 6 hands in the air, I understand, from the previous.
No hands currently, Mayor.
No hands.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there are no hands in the air at the moment.
Right. In that case,
Please
I'll
go
make that
straight to
decision.
vote.
We will do it as a straightforward vote without being recorded then. Right. So I just need to confirm we're best able to do that.
What are we waiting for now?
Yes, I've just checked basically. Because the hands aren't working and you'd have to tell us what you wanted, it's amount almost to a recorded vote, but we're not going to record it. We'll have to go through and just ask whether you're for or against. We'll note it down, but it won't be put down in the minutes as a recorded vote for details to check later. Okay, so we'll go through the list exactly the same way. So can we come back to you, please, Chief Executive?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt again, Malcolm. I think I'd asked if we could have a split vote on this item.
Okay, on which items, which ones did you want to group? Was this
on 94.2, we would like to vote 1 to 3 as one item and 4 as a separate item.
Yes,
please.
okay. I think I might have seen that on a piece of paper somewhere, lost in the middle. So in that case, this vote that you're now doing is for items 1, 2 and 3 of the recommendation for the capital programme and strategy. Okay. Which also includes Appendix A and B and C. So we'll go through the names again, please, Chief Executive.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, can we just try? I know your system's not working properly, but I just would like to try the hands up first, because I may be able to see the hands. I know you can't, but let us see if we can see the hands up first.
Good idea.
Try that. Good idea. Yeah.
So yes,
in that
I can
case,
see the hands up.
so you can ask for all those who are for then. Or are you going to do it? The hands up for fours, against, abstains.
Yeah, okay, so those are the hands, those are 4. Can we have against, please?
All hands down first, presumably, then back up for the against.
You need to take your hand
Could
down.
everybody take their hands down, please? Everybody taking their hands down?
Mine's not up.
Emma's hand is still up.
Yeah, Emma, you're still hands.
No, it's not. It's
My hand
not.
is not up.
Okay, right. It's showing us still up. So if we would, can you vote against then, please, now?
Sue, I'm not voting against. I voted for, but my hand is not up. I can assure you of that.
Okay, thank you.
Emma Hobbs here.
Thank you. So I have 4 against, and excluding Emma. And abstain. Can you put your hands down, please?
Sorry, Susan, it's Councillor G here. We are recording votes here for items 1 to 3 together, aren't we? And then a separate vote on 4. I just want to check.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So this is the vote on the 1, 2, 3 bit.
Thank you. So abstentions, please. So it's carried. So 1 to 3 recommendations are carried.
Right, let's go on to the next one.
So we move on to recommendation 4 now, please. So if you can put your hand up if you support or vote for recommendation 4.
Are we not on 3 yet? Have we done 3? I thought we'd just done 2.
No, we did 3.
1 to 3 was done as a block.
Oh, sorry.
This is still capital, Stephen.
Yes, it's capital programme and strategy, recommendation 4 only.
I can hear an enormous number of noises, furniture moving and goodness knows what.
Susan, my hand is up. It's Emma Hobbs here.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in terms of recommendation, if you can put your hands down, please. And against, please, for recommendation 4.
There are still some hands up.
Yeah, there are still some hands up. That's correct. Can you put your hands down if you're, unless you've.
My hand is down, Susan. It's Emma. Yeah.
It is Emma. Your hand is down now. Barry Patman's hand is still up. Is that the intention? Right. No. Okay. So vote recommendation 4. You're voting against recommendation 4. Okay. So none there. Any abstentions, please, for recommendation 4? Thank you. So recommendation 4 is carried. If I hand back to you, Mr. Mayor, please.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm not muted. No, 94.3 is Treasury Management Strategy. And we are going to go to the vote on that. And I imagine we're going to do the same thing again, are we, Chief Executive? Or
Malcolm, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So, sorry to interrupt you. Yes, you would like a split vote, but I'm also very conscious of the time, and I am thinking, given that we now know that council can basically write the constitution as it wants to as it goes along, whether or not we should extend the meeting for another half an hour. So
we're not allowed to.
Well, we can write the constitution, can't we? Because
I can't. Well, not respectively, no.
Mr. Mayor, I support Councillor Croy's suggestion. I can't lay my fingers on it, but there's a standing order which allows us to suspend standing orders, and I suggest we do that until we get the agenda finished. That would be my proposal. Perhaps Councillor Croy could second.
Do you have
that.
a seconder for that?
Councillor Croy, I think.
Well, I've already proposed an extension of half an hour, and I think that if we stick
Sure,
at
half an hour will
that-
be enough. We've got a lot more to do.
Not sure.
Do you want to make it an hour, even and hope we don't use it?
I'm happy to change my proposal to an hour.
But we still want to try and get through quickly, of course.
Absolutely.
Right.
Do I have a seconder?
We move on.
Habit of a lifetime and second that.
Right. Okay.
In interest of vaccinations.
You love it. You love it, John.
So
John,
what do we-
you're supporting Labour. Oh, my goodness.
Right. So the next one, I think, if I'm not losing my mind, is Treasury Management Strategy 94.3. We're doing a vote on that. Is that right?
As I understand it, Mr. Mayor, this is a split that we're looking for here.
Okay, I don't have that on my paper
Could we
here.
have 1 and 2 as one item and 3 as a separate item, please?
1 and 2 together and 3 separately.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm sure it's here under all these papers I've got. So in that case, we'll do the vote for items 1 and 2 on the Treasury Management Strategy. Can we come back to you, Chief Executive, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. So those in favour
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor and Chief Executive, I don't think we had a vote on the proposal to
extending the time. You were right.
There was no vote.
How are we going to do another vote on whether we want to extend the time? We need to get these items done.
Hands up. The easiest one.
For how long?
Half an hour. Half an hour.
It's meant to be an hour because we've got another item we must get through tonight.
I proposed 1 hour, and I understand, I think it was Chris seconded an hour. I don't know if that's right, Chris, just to get it done.
I'm happy. I'm sure if there are no silly interruptions, we can get it done in an hour. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Can I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that we just have hands up if there are those against it, and then I think that will just make it straightforward.
Okay, that sounds to be a sensible move with all this.
Against an hour rather than half an hour.
It's an hour.
It's an hour. Well, we're going to try and get it done half an hour if we can. Clearly, we're not interested in staying for the hell of it. Right. So, Treasury Management Strategy. Then recommendations 1 and 2 are being voted.
Are we having the vote about the extension first?
I thought we decided that was all right, didn't we?
2 minutes
We never voted on it. I'm against it.
This meeting will finish in 2 minutes unless you vote it, Mr. Mayor.
So
we need to get. Look, it's 2 or 3 minutes to 11. We've had a lot of problems with hands up and down signals, and we don't know what's happening. We've had to improvise. Now we have some items that we've got to get through tonight. The budget is one of them, and changing the polling stations is another. If you agree to the hour, we're still going to try and finish in half an hour anyway. So,
Mr. Mayor, can I make a suggestion? Can we just have those against the extension of an hour, and then we can move forward? So those against the extension of 1 hour.
I certainly am.
I'm against. Yeah. I'm not abstaining on this one. I'm against.
Right. So.
I'm against the refusal of the thing. I want an hour.
These.
I'm in for an extension of an hour.
Against.
Malcolm, this is against. That's what Susan said.
Well, yes, but that was this against is whether it was half an hour or an hour. Somebody said I'm against
an hour, Malcolm.
No, this is against an hour.
If we vote to stop this meeting now, we won't have a vote on the budget. What the hell is the matter with you?
You've got 26 seconds.
Where is Jackie Weaver when we need her?
Okay, thank
you. Then.
Time is up.
Right, so can we have those 4, please? For the extension of an hour, please.
I'm in favour of that. I'm very definitely. I was from the beginning.
The majority with 3 seconds left.
Yeah.
Mine says 2300.
2343 seconds. It's
have we timed out?
So and those abstentions, please. No, we can extend it. So those are extensions, please. Can we have can you put your hands down, please, and vote for abstentions for an hour? We've had technical problems that have been right across the world by the sounds of it. So, okay, so the hands that I can see are abstentions then.
If the vote is not taken until after 2300, can we extend it according to the Constitution?
Can I? So in terms of what's been voted on, we voted for. It's a clear vote for an additional hour. So so that's the vote.
Good.
So should we move on to the Treasury management strategy?
So what's happening on the capital programme? Well, there's one. Okay, fine. Treasury management strategy, 94.3. We do the vote on that, and it's 1 and 2 grouped together, isn't it?
That's correct. That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I think I voted twice unintentionally. I wanted to vote for the 1 hour extension.
Which was the majority vote anyway.
Yes, but I voted against as well, but I did not mean to. I'm sorry.
Susan's in charge.
Voting is very strange at the moment. We have to improvise. Right. So over to you, Chief Executive, for the...
Thank you. Thank you. So now I'm taking votes with regards to the Treasury management strategy, and the votes are in regards to recommendations 1 and 2 together. So now if I can take 4, please, as hands up.
Susan, I'm for. It's Emma Hobbs.
Thank you. I'm just having some issues with my system myself right now.
Susan,
okay, thank you. Sorry.
Can I just add in? I'm getting messages that my hand is showing up. It should be down.
Sorry,
it's Rachel. This is Rachel Bishop Firth. My hand should be down.
It is Rachel.
Yeah.
It's not. Yes, it's not up. So okay, so that was 4. So if we move to against, please, and this is recommendations 1 and 2. Can everybody, so this is against, can I remind everybody, ensure you've got your hands down, because I've got Michael Firmin just got his hands up at the moment. This is against Graham Howe, Alison Swaddle. I'm just checking now that Alison, you've got your hand up. Emma Hobbs, you've got your hand up for this is against recommendations 1 and 2.
So she wants to be against.
No, I'm not against it. I voted for it, Susan. It's Emma here.
Okay, thank you. So
I apologise. I'm just struggling to stay awake. It's so late.
I'm going to have to put my dustbin out in a minute.
Susan, would it not be, this is Keith, the Deputy Mayor, would it not be quicker just to do a recorded vote?
Which is what we were going to do, but there was thought to be quicker.
Okay, abstentions, please, with regards to 1 and 2. So if you put your hands down, and abstentions with regards to 1 and 2. So I've still got Rachel Burgess with your hand up for an abstention.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is 1 and 2 are carried. Thank you.
Okay, so that leaves the next bit, which is point 3 to vote for. Can we do it? It only takes about 2.5 minutes to do a recorded vote, doesn't it? If there's about.
Okay, well let me do a recorded vote then.
Okay.
Let me read.
And that's on item 3.
Okay. So,
of Treasury.
So this is recommendation 3 of the Treasury management strategy.
Yes.
Keith Baker.
Sorry, is this an official recorded vote or
No.
just a
No, we're using the mechanism for doing it, but we're not actually putting it in the files as a recorded vote. Okay.
So I'm abstaining, Susan.
Thank you. Parry Bath.
For.
Rachel Bishop Firth.
Against.
Laura Blumenthal.
For.
Chris Bowring.
For.
Shirley Boyd.
Against.
Prue Bray. Prue Bray.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with my buttons. Against.
Rachel Burgess.
Against.
Jenny Cheng.
For.
Ulukrine Clark.
For.
Stephen Conway.
Against.
Gary Cowan. Gary Cowan.
Gone to bed.
Asleep.
Andy Croy.
Against.
Richard Delinsky. Richard Delinsky. Carl Duran.
Against.
Carl Duran.
Against.
Lindsay Ferris.
Against.
Michael Firmager.
For.
Paul Fishwick.
Against.
Jim Fruin.
For.
Maria G.
Against.
Guy Granderson.
For.
Charlotte Haytham Taylor.
For.
John Halsall.
For.
David Herr.
Against.
Pauline Kelly Simons.
For.
Emma Hobbs.
For.
Graham Howe.
For.
Clive Jones.
Against.
Pauline Jorgensen.
For.
John Kaiser.
For.
Sarah Kerr.
Against.
Diane King.
For.
Abdul Loys.
For.
Tahir Maher.
Against.
Charles McGatts.
For.
Adrian Mather.
Against.
Ken Mayall.
For.
Andrew Mickleby.
Against.
Stuart Monroe.
For.
Gregor Murray.
For.
Barry Patman.
For.
Malcolm Richards.
Abstain as mayor.
Angus Ross.
For.
Daniel Sargent.
For.
Imogen Shepherd de Bay.
Against.
Rochelle Shepherd de Bay.
Against.
Caroline Smith.
Against.
Chris Smith. Wayne Smith.
For.
Bill Soane.
For.
Alison Swaddle.
For.
Simon Weeks.
For.
And Gary Cowan was against. My apologies, I missed it.
Just woken up.
Gary Cowan.
Against.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. I'm abstaining. I thought
No, I know
sorry.
that.
Yeah.
What's the can you read the results out, please?
Bear with me. Yes, it is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's it. Now we move to the last part of this one, which is 94.4, the medium-term financial plan. We need to have a vote on that, and that must be an official recorded vote. So these are all going in one lump as well. They're not separated, are they? So over to you, Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor,
sorry?
Mr. Mayor, I have asked for these to be separated, if that's possible.
Have you? Which ones?
One and two together and three separate.
Okay, same again. Yeah. I have so many papers in front of me. Right. So same idea then. 1 and 2 over to the Chief Executive, and we are going to do a formal recorded vote.
Okay, so this is a recorded vote for 1 and 2. So Keith Baker.
Abstain.
Barry Path.
4.
Sorry, Parry Bath.
Four.
Rachel Bishop Firth.
Abstain.
Laura Blumenthal.
4.
Chris Bowring.
4.
Shirley Boyd.
Against.
Prue Bray.
Abstain.
Rachel Burgess.
Against.
Jenny Cheng.
4.
Olukarin Clark.
4.
Stephen Conway.
Abstain.
Gary Cowan.
Abstain.
Andy Croy. Andy Croy.
Against. Apologies. Against.
Richard Dolinsky.
4.
Carl Duran.
Against.
Lindsay Ferris.
Abstain.
Michael Firmager.
4.
Paul Fishwick.
Abstain.
Jim Fruin.
Abstain.
Maria G.
Abstain.
Guy Granderson.
4.
Charlotte Haytham Taylor.
4.
Charlotte Haytham Taylor.
4.
John Halsall.
4.
David Hare.
Abstain.
Pauline Hellier Simons.
4.
Emma Hobbs.
4.
Graham Howe.
4.
Clive Jones.
Abstain.
Pauline Jorgensen.
4.
John Kaiser.
4.
Sarah Kerr.
Abstain.
Diane King.
4.
Abdul Loys.
4.
Tahir Maher.
Abstain.
Charles McGetts.
4.
Adrian Mather.
Abstain.
Ken Mile.
4.
Andrew Mickleby.
Abstain.
Stuart Monroe.
4.
Gregor Murray.
4.
Barry Patman.
4.
Malcolm Richards. Malcolm Richards.
As Mayor, I abstain.
Angus Ross.
4.
Daniel Sargent.
4.
Imogen Shepherd de Bay.
Abstain.
Rochelle Shepherd de Bay.
Abstain.
Caroline Smith.
Abstain.
Chris Smith. Wayne Smith.
4.
Bill Soane.
4.
Alison Swaddle.
4.
Simon Wheats.
4.
Thank you. So now, oh, sorry. Mr. Mayor, will you read out the outcome, please?
Does it have the result? It will.
Yep.
Right, recommendations are agreed for 1 and 2. Carried. So we now go to, sorry? We now go to the vote on the last part, number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We now, now recorded vote for recommendation 3.
Right.
Keith Baker.
Abstain.
Harry Bath.
4.
Rachel Bishop Firth.
4.
Laura Blumenthal.
4.
Chris Bowring.
4.
Shirley Boyd.
4.
Prue Bray.
4.
Rachel Burgess.
4.
Jenny Cheng.
4.
Olukarin Clark.
4.
Stephen Conway.
4.
Gary Cowan.
4.
Andy Croy.
4.
Richard Dolinsky.
4.
Carl Duran.
4.
Lindsay Ferris.
4.
Michael Firmager.
4.
Paul Fishwick.
4.
Jim Fruin.
4.
Maria G.
4.
Guy Granderson.
4.
Charlotte Haytham Taylor.
4.
John Halsall.
4.
David Hare.
4.
Pauline Hellier Simons.
4.
Emma Hobbs.
4.
Graham Howe.
4.
Clive Jones.
4.
Pauline Jorgensen.
4.
John
Against.
Kaiser.
Sorry, 4. Sorry, that was a 4. Sorry. Getting late.
That was Pauline Jorgensen with a 4. John Kaiser.
Yes, I think I ought to vote for it, don't you? 4.
Sarah Kerr.
4.
Diane King.
4.
Abdul Loys.
4.
Tahir Maher.
4.
Charles Magetz.
4.
Adrian Mather.
4.
Ken Mile.
4.
Andrew Mickleby.
4.
Stuart Monroe.
4.
Gregor Murray.
4.
Barry Patman.
4.
Malcolm Richards.
I say.
Angus Ross.
4.
Daniel Sargent.
4.
Imogen Shepherd de Bay.
4.
Rochelle Shepherd de Bay.
4.
Caroline Smith.
4.
Chris Smith. Wayne Smith.
4.
Bill Soane.
4.
Alison Swaddle.
4.
Simon Weeks.
4.
Thank you.
Right, those recommendations are carried. So that one's approved as well. Now, that's the end of number 94. Under normal circumstances, we would go on to agenda item 95 and then through the subsequent ones. However, there's an election coming up shortly, and there are some polling station changes to be done, and they have to be got through tonight. Otherwise, it risks the ability of people not knowing whether they've got to change stations and set up and so on. So I am proposing that we miss off 95 at the moment and go straight to number 96, which is the redesignation of polling places. And there are about half a dozen things down there. And so basically, if that's okay,
Malcolm,
I need a seconder.
Malcolm, would you like me to whiz through it?
Yes, so I want someone to second it anyway.
Okay,
Can I ask you to second it?
Yeah, it's been seconded by Wayne Smith.
Is it okay? Good.
Basically, members, what this is a redesignation of some polling places because some of the places we've got aren't available or they cannot be made COVID safe. And the places that we're recommending or being recommended is the Baptist Church, Fairmead Road, Shinfield, Wargrave Pavilion, St John's Church, Woodley, Hurst Village Hall, the Cornerstone, Norris Avenue. Is anybody who doesn't support all that, please speak, I would suggest. Everybody's silent, Mr. Mayor. I assume that they've taken.
Could I ask one question? Just one quick question, Mr. Mayor. It's Shirley Boyd here. Is this the final list of changes, or are there still some to be done?
No. What will happen? This isn't the final list. It also gives. If we find that we have a situation that we can't make something else COVID safe, it gives Andrew Moulton the opportunity to do it without bringing it back.
Ah, that's fine, because I'd raised a polling station with Andrew, and it's not on here, so that's fine. Thank you very much for the clarification.
So we have to do a vote on that now.
No, if nobody wants it, I would suggest if nobody wants to argue about it, I suggest we take it as read.
Yeah, nobody wants to vote against. Yeah.
Anybody want to vote against?
I think we just have a quick show of hands. We can't have stuff just quick show of hands.
That's right, Andrew.
Lunacy. Absolute lunacy.
So
we need more items.
Okay, I've sought advice on this, and obviously we've got to vote, but they're prepared to accept a show of hands as being valid on this. Yeah. So it's a show of hands. So
you've got them all, Malcolm. You've got all the show of hands.
Got them?
Yeah, they're all there.
All voted. We want to move on.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, that is approved. Item 96 is done. We can now go back to 95. Thank you for that one, by the way. Go back to 95 now, and we'll Treasury Management and Media Report.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor G here. I wish to raise a point of order in respect of item 95, please.
Okay, what is the point?
Yeah, the point of order is on two grounds. 4.4.4.1 and 4.4.3, supported by the requirements of 12.1.5, 1.1.3 in the local code of corporate governance. I also wish to highlight that there are two Treasury Management mid-year reports in this meeting, neither of which is labelled Appendix A in our packs, pages 147 to 155, and we must note a cost of borrowing to the taxpayer of £7.52 in recommendation 1 on page 147, as well as a benefit of £7.20 under recommendation 3 on page 147. The basic constitutional issue under 4.4.4.1 is that the audit committee recommendation should go forward to this meeting, and 4.4.3 is that the audit committee monitors Treasury Management and makes recommendations to council. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of information there. I'll need to see some clarification on that. Bear with me. It seems from what I can see that these documents are in the agenda. They are available. They are accessible. I can't understand why you think they're not.
Right, if I can just say again, there are two Treasury Management mid-year reports, neither of which is labelled Appendix A. And in the first Treasury Management report, if we note the submission from the audit committee, then we're noting a cost of borrowing to the taxpayer of £7.52 per resident, and we're also noting in recommendation 3 a benefit of £7.20. Now, they both obviously can't be recommended or noted in the same meeting. Furthermore, under 4.4.4.1, it's the audit committee reports direct to council, and under 4.4.3, it's the audit committee that monitors Treasury Management and makes recommendations to council. So there's no possible way that this report should be going via executive. Under the local code of corporate governance, the audit committee is required to be independent of the executive and accountable to the governing body. That's the council reporting via the executive, i.e. by looking at the first report, that breaches the required internal control in the code of governance, and it's not constitutional. So we can't vote on the report on pages 147 to 149 because it hasn't got here by constitutional means. So we should vote on the report on pages 151 to 155, which has been recommended by the audit committee. Thank you.
Well, sorry, I'm advised that the process and the procedures and the details are there, but I need to secretary advice.
Mr. Mayor, Mr.
Yes?
Mayor, if Maria was right, then we should, but she's wrong. The audit committee doesn't approve these reports; it just monitors them.
It says that the audit committee, excuse me, John, it says the audit committee monitors Treasury Management and makes recommendations to council. It doesn't say that the audit committee monitors Treasury Management and its recommendations may be taken into account by executive and then go to council. And specifically for internal control, which is really important if you're looking after taxpayers' money, says that the audit committee is independent of the executive and therefore they cannot put another report on top of our report, and that the audit committee is accountable to the governing body. I'm not quite sure which of those bits is not clear at this meeting.
Mr. Mayor, you started this meeting by telling us that the Mayor's decision on everything is final. You have given a decision. Can we please move on?
I'd like to know the reasoning for the decision. That's fine. I will respect the Mayor's decision, but I'd like to know the reasoning for why this isn't a point of order isn't accepted.
Right. So on the basis that we will continue, I understand, Councillor Kaiser, that you are proposing this.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I am.
Excuse me, but I believe this point of order needs to be responded to.
It has. It has. We said that the information is in the documents. And
what's the explanation that you're ignoring her point of order?
Well, she's saying it is, and several other people to whom I go for advice say it is. So someone will have to look at it afterwards.
Can we have the monitoring officer respond on this, please?
Particularly 4.4.4.1.
Is Andrew Moulton there?
Probably gone to sleep.
This is not an instant decision. We're having to debate quite a bit.
When things like this come up, the mayor, or if it's the deputy mayor, because the mayor's not here, refers your comments to officers, to democratic services, to the monitoring officer. So the response that's come back via the mayor is not the mayor's response, it is the officer's response.
I have, yeah, sorry, this is Mayor speaking. I have sought further advice. It is very difficult. People are saying different things. It's going to take a while to resolve it. We can't sort it out and then still continue the process. So I'm suggesting that we do not take item 95 tonight. We do not discuss and vote it because we can't resolve it with differences which need investigation. So we will miss 95 out this evening, in which case we then go back onto the remaining item, which I think is number 97. Which
Thank you, Malcolm.
Changes to the Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I can't see a better way around that, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So, number 97 then, changes the Constitution. I understand that Councillor Munro, you are proposing this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this late hour, I hope we don't have a long discussion about this, but these are the results of the meeting on the 1st of February, and really most of it's a lot of cleaning up and reviewing processes which need amending. This was a cross-party panel, looked at these items. I mean, the last few items are about moving things from in the finance sector to take it into account the fact that we've moved out of the European Union, and the first ones are about clearing up things that don't really make sense. So rather than reading through every single item, which I'm happy to do, but at 11:30 in the evening, it's probably not a good idea. So I would just commend these changes. They've been agreed to the council and suggest we go straight to the vote.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'm seconding it, Malcolm. John Kaiser, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I wish to reserve my right to speak, but not later.
Not too late. Okay. Right. So who else wishes to speak on this? We're back to the habit of trying to stick hands in the air, aren't we?
Lindsay here.
Okay. Would you like to speak, Lindsay?
Yes, having difficulty putting my picture on tonight for some reason.
We're still having problems.
We can see you.
Yes, I think I've got on. It's come on tonight now. I would like a separate vote on points 1 to 3 and on points 4 to 6 of this agenda item. Points 4 to 6 are non-contentious and can be agreed. However, the Lib Dem group has a number of concerns about 1, 2 and 3. We believe that under point 1, The removal of the forward plan at executive, we think is actually more to do with the fact that the forward plan bears little or no resemblance to what actually gets discussed at the exec, and I think we need to have some clear indication of what's coming through to the exec rather than sort of find what's on the agenda. On point 2, there needs to be a reference, and I think our representative at the committee said that there needed to be a minimum and maximum size of committees. Our concern is that by removing the size of committees, they could all end up being 4, and that is 3-1, and then that makes it all not ability to opposition to do making proposals and sorts of things. And on point 3, many people, both councillors and members of the public, have had difficulties getting answers to some questions, and the approach here proposed would limit the ability of those asking questions to ask further searching questions into a particular area. Our concern is the use of same and similar to. So we have concerns about that, and our group would be voting against points 1 to 3. So therefore, we would like to have.
Can I kind of cross you a moment, Lindsay Fisher? You're going to ask for a split vote. You can tell me in a moment what they are, because obviously it's lost in the middle of the words. But I can tell you, Councillor Croy has also asked for a split, but I don't think I'm not sure if his split is the same as yours. Right. And so in that case, we're going to have to take 6 votes, aren't we? Which is going to take a lifetime.
Not necessarily. If there's a commonality between 4, 5 and 6, maybe. We'll see.
Can I ask you to, speaking now, say how you can come up with one set of split votes that is satisfactory? Take the ones where you both agree and put those in the same ones, and then take the ones you disagree and we'll do those separately.
I don't know Andy's split.
We can do 4 to 6 as one.
4 to 6, and
4, 5, and 6 as one item. I think Lindsay can do that.
4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3 in your case, Andy, is what? Together as well or separately?
Well, we actually want to do 1, 4, 5, and 6 as one item, and 2 and 3 as one item. I suspect it's probably better to do 1, 2, and 3 separately, and then 4, 5, 6 as one.
Yeah, which is what I was saying. We'll put the one together we can. So, is that okay between the two of you, Andy and Lindsay?
Yes, I think separately on 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 as a common one.
Okay. Good. So thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor, should we go to the vote if we want to do that at this late hour? Yeah, we're going to do the vote. I mean, I was going to accept those because both of you agreed, and you're the only two that have separated the groups. So I wanted to get the debate, go through the debate quickly, so we can go and get the votes done, because we still need to finish in time. So let me see. Councillor Monroe, you've spoken. Secondly by Councillor Halsall. Do you want to speak now, Councillor Halsall, or speak later?
I'll speak later.
Okay. So does anyone else wish to speak on this? Bearing in mind we need to be as brief as possible.
My seconder was Councillor Kaiser.
I've got down here John Halsall written on my note. Sorry.
Gary Cowan would like to speak.
So, Councillor Kaiser, are you going to speak now or speak later?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I got nothing more to say.
So you can speak later if you need. Okay. So, yes. So, who wants to speak then? Who wants to speak on the general debate? Anyone?
I would like to.
Gary Cowan.
Okay, Councillor Cowan, do you want to speak, please?
Yes, please. I'm not sure if I've got this right, but the construction of the Constitutional Review Group is the leader, the deputy leader, Stuart Monroe, a member of the executive, and one member of the Lib Dem group. But with respect to agenda item 7, I'm concentrating on item number 3. I do see the need to make constitutional changes from time to time, but that's the one that sticks out like a sore thumb in the various guises is actually 3. which says the chief executive and/or the mayor or the chairman may reject a question if it is substantially the same as a question which has already been put at or submitted to a meeting or at a meeting in the council or executive or any other committees in the last 6 months. And this begs a series of questions. Who decides if the question is similar or has been put before? Who trumps who if a member and a resident asks similar questions? Also, it's quite possible the supplementaries will probably be quite different because the people will be submitting questions from a different area. This kills all that stone dead. In addition, the members will not see the question submitted by a resident. So this approach means the member will not see the resident's question until the agenda is published. So this rule denies him his or her rights to be able to change his question if the member question is taken a month before the meeting, which it has been. Parliament is a democratic model, and the system is in Parliament. The majority of MPs merely request the Prime Minister to list his engagements for the day, which then allows them to ask a supplementary question on any area within the government's responsibility. In my opinion, what's good enough for the mother of all Parliament should be good enough for Wokingham Borough Council. When I see the Conservative bias on the Standards Committee and the Constitutional Review Group, which are both heavily driven by executive members to date, I'm not really surprised by this recommendation. I will be asking for a recorded vote on item 3, if I have the support, just to show residents how Wokingham services will go to suppress democracy and debate. It's actually, 3 is an utter disgrace. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak?
Yes, I do, please, Malcolm.
Yes, please speak then, Candy.
Thank you very much. I guess the serious points, or some of the serious points, have already been raised by Gary. The idea that we would have somebody restricting questions when at a time when we should be under more scrutiny than ever is absurd, and I just don't know where this idea has come from. Stuart said that he implied that this was a result of cross-party working. Well, it wasn't a result of any working with our party. And from what Lindsay says, it's not been the result of anyone working with the Lib Dems either. Just looking at the committee composition, a couple of years ago there was a mistake. I don't buy into the conspiracy theory. There was a mistake. It was been identified, and we can get on with actually composing or comprising committees properly. To rewrite the whole to rewrite all of the numerical entries against the committees is an absurd way to react, and it looks terrible. What we're saying is we've made a mistake. Now we're just making it impossible for us to make that same mistake again. Perhaps what needs to happen is that within democratic services, perhaps the processes there need to be tightened up. But limiting the number of people on committees just gives a huge amount of power to whoever has say, for example, a one-seat majority in the next council. You know, we could end up with committees of just 2 people, providing we've got the political balance across the council. Why isn't that the case? This is something I think which has been agreed because the Conservatives are running out of bodies to put on committees, and we should not be supporting this. It's anti-democratic. It brings me on to a slightly wider point. Is we do have an absurd situation where council can change the constitution just like that. I think in many organisations you need a substantial majority of members present to change the constitution. We can't carry on with these controversial changes being rubber stamped because the Conservatives have got a majority of 1 or whatever the number they have. We need to do much better than that. Finally, on the tidying up and leaving the European Union, I looked through the documents. I went through them all. I saw all the references to the World Trade Organization, and it just occurred to me I don't remember voting to join the World Trade Organization. I don't remember electing the new president of the World Trade Organization. I don't remember electing any representation at all.
Can we constrain it to the 2 hour?
So it's good to see that what taking back control really means in this country.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? No?
There was a request from Gary about having a recorded vote on 3. I'm quite supportive of that one. I think 3 is the most contentious of the ones that are here, and we're not very keen on the number of committee spaces.
Okay, so 4, 5 and 6 will go together. 1, 2 and 3 we could do separately, or can you agree that 2 and 3 could go together or not? No.
No,
okay.
let's leave them separate.
Okay, so 1, 2 and 3 we've done separately. 4, 5 and 6 will go together, and the recorded vote will be on which bits of concern, sorry? Which ones do you want the recorded votes on?
I think we've had a request from Gary on number 3.
On number 3, recorded vote. Okay, but it looks like we'll be doing an unofficial recorded vote anyway, simply in order to find out what people's answers are. We just won't record them.
We might as well have
another official
3 recorded votes then.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, could I make a proposal?
Certainly.
In view of the comments on number 3 and the fact that this isn't an urgent item that needs to be discussed at 20 to 12 tonight, can we take this back to Constitutional Review Working Party, take into account the comments from no, I've forgotten his name, Andy, and actually get items reviewed by the Constitution. Yeah,
I would be delighted with that. I'm quite happy. It doesn't seem to be one that has to be resolved tonight, unlike the polling stations and all the other bits. So I'm happy to make that decision that this one also, item 97, also gets put back to a later meeting.
Well, what I'm suggesting, Ralph, sorry, is that we can agree the bits that are non-contentious about the removal of the EU wording, and just take the items that are contentious, where I think Andy has made some interesting points about them, as have others.
Well, which of these 6 are the ones that have that?
1, 2 and 3, Mayor.
No,
okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, we've agreed to have a recorded vote on 3. So if you want to change that to defer it to another meeting, then you really need to take a vote on whether you should defer it.
So
I would rather we voted on it.
We're trying to minimise the votes at the moment on these. Can we do 4, 5 and 6 together and have a recorded vote on that and then see what we can do?
Malcolm, do I have a seconder for my proposal that we take
Guy Grandison
that back? Thank you, Guy. Are you happy to support that, Andy?
Sorry.
I'm happy to support that, Pauline. Take 1 to 3 back and let's vote 4 to 6.
Thank you, Andy.
Mr. Mayor.
Good. Yes.
Just a point of order. 4.2.15 talks about voting.
Yes.
In this constitution, it has no provision for splitting the votes on a recommendation. You take the recommendation as it is, or you vote against it. You can't. The Constitution is entirely silent on doing what we're currently doing, and we're only doing it because you're good enough to allow people to do it.
Well, I understand it's been done before, and I'm not the expert on the Constitution.
It has been done for many years.
It's completely wrong, and it's completely against the Constitution, which all these my friends in the opposition keep on talking about.
Well, there's the master of the Constitution speaking now, I see.
Gary, you've been living with it longer than I have, old mate.
And I deal with it more honourably than you as well.
I don't think.
Why don't we
gentlemen, sorry.
Gentlemen,
that's enough. Councillor Grandison, are you going to speak on this item at all?
No, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say, can we? Let's just move to the 4, 5, and 6, and I think
we defer 1, 2, and 3 to a later date, and lots more discussion elsewhere. And we do 4, 5, and 6 tonight, and presumably record. Well, it will be an unofficial recorded vote.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask that we vote to split this as a group? Because personally, I don't see any backing from any of the rest of the people, other than 2 or 3 speakers. So let's go to the vote to make a change. Otherwise, we just go for it all as recommended.
Okay, so I made a proposal, Stuart, that we split it and that we defer. We defer 1 to 3 back to the Constitutional Review Working Group. I've got a seconder, which is Guy. Should we have a vote?
Sorry, Guy. Yes.
Yeah.
So a vote on it.
Yeah, happy to vote on it.
Okay.
I may be wrong.
So I need to take a vote on that then, would I? On whether we do that. The proposal would be that items 1, 2 and 3 are not discussed and voted on tonight. They are deferred to a later date. And items 4, 5 and 6 are voted on tonight as a group, I believe. Just a moment. I've got a note to read. I've got a note to.
How are we going to do it?
Shall I read the names out, Mr. Mayor? Shall I read everybody's names out to vote?
Just what I understand is that we are deferring back to the working group items 1, 2, 3. Which
that's right.
Deferring, but it's referring back actually to the working group rather than just deferring. And we're going to vote now on 4, 5 and 6.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, could we not take one vote that says that 1, 2 and 3 are deferred and we approve 4, 5 and 6 or not?
Yes, well
I agree.
That would achieve the same thing, wouldn't it?
I agree. That's acceptable.
However we resolve it, that's what we want to achieve. So yes, who's going to second that then? It was Councillor Ross, was that? Who?
Yeah. That's basically,
who's going to second it?
basically what Pauline and me suggested anyway. So yeah, let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I need to know who's proposing and second officially. So Pauline Jorgensen proposed it.
Gary Cowan will second it happily.
Gary Cowan will second it, and that's what we're going to have a vote on now. Then the 1, 2 and 3 are deferred, and 4, 5 and 6 will be voted together. All right.
Over to you, Susan.
Thank you. I'll read the names out now. Thank you. Keith Baker.
4.
Parry Bath.
4.
Rachel Bishop First.
4.
Laura Blumenthal.
4.
Chris Bowring.
4.
Shirley Boyd.
4.
Prue Bray.
4.
Rachel Burgess.
4.
Jenny Cheng.
4.
Ulrich Clark.
4.
Stephen Conway.
4.
Gary Cowan. Gary Cowan.
Seconded it, Gary.
4, Gary, you're for it.
Gary Cowan.
I did say 4 or 3 times now.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Gary.
3 votes.
Andy Croy.
4.
Richard Dolinsky.
4.
Carl Duran.
4.
Lindsay Ferris.
4.
Michael Firminger.
4.
Paul Fishwick.
4.
Jim Fruin.
4.
Maria G.
4.
Guy Granderson.
Cool. 4. I don't want to speak in Latin.
Charlotte Haytham Taylor. Charlotte Haytham Taylor.
4. Sorry, there's the lag.
John Halsall. John Halsall.
I have a proxy vote for the leader. He'll vote for.
David. Pauline Hellier Simons.
4.
Emma Hobbs. Emma Hobbs.
Gone to bed.
Graham Howe.
4.
Clive Jones.
4.
Pauline Jorgensen.
4.
John Kaiser.
4.
Sarah Kerr.
4.
Diane King.
I'm just trying to stop.
4. Sorry, dropped off.
Abdul Lois.
4.
Tahir Maher.
4.
Charles Magetz.
4.
Adrian Mather.
4.
Ken Mile.
4.
Andrew Mickleby.
4.
Stuart Monroe.
Reluctantly 4.
Gregor Murray.
We start at 7.
4.
Barry Patman.
4.
Always takes 3 hours.
Malcolm Richards.
As Mayor, I abstain.
Angus Ross.
4.
Daniel Sargent.
4.
Imogen Shepherd-Debay. Why were they on the same day?
Imogen Shepherd-Debay.
4.
Rochelle Shepherd-Debay.
4.
Caroline Smith.
4.
Chris Smith. Wayne Smith.
4.
Bill Soane.
4.
Alison Swaddle. Alison Swaddle.
Okay. Just it's carried.
Simon Weeks.
4.
Thank you.
Recorded vote. We all vote the same way. Just about sums up the meeting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's really.
So that appears to be the 1, 2, 3 sort of deferred, and the 4, 5, 6 are carried. So that's the end of that item. We missed out two to be done later. It's been a long night with lots of technical problems, which has extended the time. I do apologise for that. I'm not able to do much about the hands up feature, which is part of the problem. But that's the end of the meeting. It's about 8 minutes to 12. So end of the meeting as of now. Good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Malcolm and Susan.
Right, and thank you, Susan.